All right. Probably no one's left, but I'm here. Um, really unfortunate. Been having technical difficulties lately. I don't know why. But anyone stuck around, thank you. Uh, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. But I don't know what's causing it right now. It really fucking sucks. But thanks if you stuck around. Let's see if I can reconnect. See what's going
No,
on.
no, no, no.
Hey everyone. Trying to work my way back here, unfortunately. Um,
I hope restarting solves everything.
No, somebody just spamming like some website, some bot.
all right. So,
Hello.
hello. Hey,
Hey,
friend.
Doogie.
I'm here, but I will be right back in like
Okay.
5 minutes.
Oh God, what's going on? Oh my.
Well, you're working on this end. Your stream seems to be working on my end.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like at all. Like I restart my computer like every time. Like for years, to avoid exactly these things, I restart my computer before I I get started every single time. And I just don't know what's going on.
Sometimes that can cause problems. It causes problems on my fucking Streamlabs all the time where it's like it'll forget my virtual audio cables and shit. People will be like, we can't hear anything. And then I'm like, oh fuck, I have to like go into Discord and go into this and like reset it to the right audio
Never
cable.
been a problem before. It's always been helpful to avoid exactly this. Now, so I don't know what's going on. Everyone, testing. Can you guys hear me? Hope you guys are. Some of you stuck around. It was a long time. It takes a long time for me to spin things back up. So hopefully people are around. But okay.
Yeah, it's always stressful as a streamer too because it's like half your fucking audience is like, oh, I'll just go watch somebody else then. And you're like, motherfuckers, you disloyal pieces of shit. So give him his chat engagement and show Prime who the true loyalists are.
Yeah.
Okay, pop back up into the chat and let your name be seen as the people with patience and loyalty.
I would appreciate
and donate
that.
too.
And that would be all. That'd be super helpful. In fact, be silent and just give me money. That'll work as well. But
also, another alternative is to just come watch my stream and give me money, and then just talk to Prime through my stream, and I'll let him know. I'll let him know what's
an
up.
option. But okay. Well, I'm just gonna have to push past it. There's just no ways about it. Now I just gotten raided too. It's really unfortunate, but I have to push past it. In any case, yeah, we were talking about date spots and all that. I had a whole thing I wanted to go into. But let's see. Okay, so on that note, right? So something I wanted to ask you, Scott. I was going to ask Doobie something, but he's gone now. We're waiting for him to get back.
He might be back.
Not. But I can sense him. But yeah, Scott. So, well, in terms of your opinion, because I know you're different from other conservatives, right? Do you feel? Oh,
I would hope so. Yeah.
But you're going to agree with them here, right? You would say that the government should get out of marriage completely, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think we should get rid of the concept of right to self-incrimination being protected by marriage. I think they should get out of changing legal status for taxation purposes for marriage. I think every instance of the government favoring marriage has been waters down what the concept of marriage is to a state contract as opposed to a expression of religious devotation.
Okay, so this is going to be a much shorter conversation, and probably would have been better for some other people here. But I agree with almost everything you've said except for that last part.
I can make anything long-winded. Don't worry.
Oh, no worry. Except for that last part.
Unfathomably long.
In terms of like the religious expression, I would say it doesn't have to be a religious expression. But other than that, I guess I would agree.
I mean, marriage is, I mean, sure. I mean, it's predominantly religious, right? Like, don't be the meme of like, it's a generalization, right? Obviously, some people may be purely secular in their marriage, but it's usually coming from a spiritual, traditional perspective.
That's not the thing. I'm not trying to ding you on that. I'm just saying I have a disagreement.
Yeah, no.
That's it. Yeah. In any case,
well, I'm just saying I agree with you. It's not really a disagreement.
Okay.
I was trying to be less verbose, but then you had to pull it out of me.
Okay.
So I gotta make sure I get every little detail
what about
right.
in terms of property? We make allowances within our laws for property to be like handed down through marriage bonds and then through family bonds later on.
Yeah, I would repeal equitable distribution laws.
Equitable distribution law. I don't know what those are.
That's like the concept of like splitting property 50-50 in a divorce. Yeah, I would repeal that shit.
I was thinking more of the husband dies, wife gets the house.
This is a question. I don't know that I have a satisfying answer for what is considered to be next of kin from a libertarian perspective. It's not one very fleshed out in the theory, right? Like, is it like, where does, I mean, property goes towards the individual that homesteads the property, as well as, towards the wishes of the person that dies. So it's very clear cut when you have a will.
Yeah.
Right. But in the absence of a will, I would say that property ought go to the wife because that is the standard currently. Right. So they didn't make it known via a will, which is a very simple document, right? That their property ought go somewhere other than where it normally goes. But I think if, like, in the absence of a will, I think that's very stupid, but if someone can, bring some proof or something that they wanted their children to have, this property or something like that, then that should be perfectly valid. I don't think, but that constitutes a will in some degree, right? Like, if I have a recording from a couple years ago with my grandpa or something, it says, when I die, all this land is yours, etc., and then the wife tries to take it. Like, I think that should be legally binding.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to, and this isn't the point that.
But it gets messy because it's more about proving, right? The principle is property ought go where the property owner wants it to go upon their death, but proving that can be difficult.
So yeah. I agreed. So will makes it very simple, right? And nothing even to discuss there. I mean, if there is no will, right? Should property automatically land in the hands of the wife, or the spouse, right? Whatever, right? Should they automatically get that? And who would automatically give it to them? In that case, right? Rather than any other organization.
Yeah, I mean,
getting their hands on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is that it's like, in the absence of a will, then it's again, the property ought go wherever the property owner wanted it to go. If there is no evidence of where it ought go, then there likely is an established cultural norm within whatever society you're living in, right? And then a property dispute may occur. But that's for local governance, how voluntary societies have set it up to determine, like, this is a problem where the state just kind of arbitrarily goes, it's the wife, right? Whereas, in reality, that is just kind of an arbitrary thing to resolve an issue. There are other arbitrary ways to resolve the issue, which is continuing that pattern, or, kind of like the property gets split equally amongst all of their surviving relatives. Like, there are different ways different societies might handle it, right? Maybe you're in like some covenant religious community and it goes to the church if you don't specify it, like whatever that society sets up, and whomever is in control of that will be the one that handles that. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's like, it really is just context dependent for the community that you're living in. Like, it is a problem, right? There are a billion problems in the world that need to be solved by power and institutional structures, right? Like, that's what civilization is. There isn't a clear-cut example from libertarianism because there isn't a clear example from the state. The state has just kind of made a choice. So that's our status quo.
Just kind of made a choice, or is it like it is kind of an obvious assumption that if someone was married and there isn't anything stated otherwise, that the person that you were married to would like assume all the things that, because like other, like if the state
it's
were
coming from an old tradition. It's coming from an old tradition where women aren't working and where women don't predominantly have their own property, right? So what you're talking about is the household. And so when the man dies, there's only one person left that is to maintain and own the household, which is the wife. So it seems more foreign to us in a world today where women are working and they have their own property, and where kids are having a harder time,
But no, not only that,
themselves.
like the property costs something, right? So like if you are married, why should, like, for example, the state, or like once again, unless it's specified otherwise, why shouldn't the person who is should accept like the money, or like assume the responsibility for the house, be the person that was living in that house where you were married to? I don't know if it's just like a tradition for the sake of. I think it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's arbitrary, but it's a simplistic one, especially since it can easily be resolved with a will, right? So it's like it's not a particularly big problem, I don't think. But I wanted to give the question its due diligence. You know what I mean?
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Corey.
Out of curiosity, on a sort of a separate topic, but tangentially related. So last week, Scott, when you were absent, okay, we got into a discussion with Rob Noor. He was essentially advocating for essentially no more funding of university research, basically, especially in the vein of cancer research. I'm curious, let's say, what in the abolishment of the state scenario, how do you have any sense, or does it matter if any sort of foundational research gets funded, or do you think the private sector will be able to actually do that?
I feel like you can kind of already guess. I feel like this is a silly question, and I'm not. It's a fine question, but from you, it feels a little silly because you know my answer, right? My answer is obviously the state shouldn't be funding research. Like, are you asking me how would a free market handle pharmaceutical research? Is that the question?
Well, no, because I would argue that pharmaceutical research is on the foundation of research that takes place at public institutions, as in whatever your Harvards, your Stanfords, or whatever other university. I'm obviously choosing, let's say, the Ivy League ones and the prestigious ones, but I don't just mean only them. Where it's like without that foundational research, I don't think pharmaceutical. I'm sure they will still develop things, but it'll be at a much slower pace. At least in my opinion. And are you essentially okay with that much slower pace?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, because if it's at a slower pace, right, that is an assumption that I don't necessarily know whether or not it would be true, right?
I'm speculating.
But let's assume that it is true. That means that money is going towards its most valued ends, right? It means it's going to a place that people value it more. And so there will be other areas of progress in human society. Maybe it means less people starving. Maybe it means more jobs. Maybe it means cheaper groceries. In some way, shape, or form, some other aspect of the economy will be shaped in such a way that people's lives match their desires to a higher degree than they would in cancer research. I think with the abolishment of IP, novel chemical research especially, right, is going to be a difficult thing. I think one of the ways that it will occur will actually be through a university system, right? Because if I want to teach people, I need professors, right? I run a private university. I need professors. And if I want good professors, well, the adage is absolutely false. Those who can't teach anybody, and you know this, but a lot of people don't, right? That when you get into the PhD level and you have really good professors, they're kind of forced to teach, right? Because they want to do their research, right? And they want access to research funds and, sophisticated laboratories that aren't necessarily, but they don't necessarily want to work in, the private market because of psychic profit or whatever. They want to work on, something else. And so I think much of that probably will continue, where the cost of tuition, part of the cost of tuition will be funding research, because that is what is likely necessary to get the best professors, right? Because the best professors in those domains are going to be people that actually understand and work in that field, as opposed to people that previously did it but aren't up to date on what's going on in current research and things like that. So I think universities will definitely probably slow down, but there will still be, even without the state, a desire for college education and for skilled labor. And that will mean funding research by getting the best professionals. I also think there will probably be first to market cartels that will be created, where companies will let if pharmaceutical companies are willing to invest in research and development, then they will get first to market advantage, and there'll be like NDAs and things like that that protect the research that they're currently engaged in, as opposed to patents, right? Because like now we have a patent system, and so research is kind of more open to the public because they can divulge their recipes and divulge what they're doing through the approval process and clinical trials and things of that nature. Whereas I think a free market will probably be a little bit more secretive about that information and signing NDAs so that they can bring drugs to market, so that it takes a while for those drugs to be reverse engineered, and things of that nature. Depending upon the drug, some drugs you can kind of reverse engineer immediately. Some of them it's going to take years, right, before you can figure out what the formula is. And so I think first to market advantage will be there. And so I do think there will probably be less research because of that IP, but I also think that pharmaceutical research especially will be far, far more focused on cures than focused on drugs that are maintenance without IP protection, because they know that eventually they're going to have competition for these. But if they can come out with a cure, that first to market advantage is a huge advantage, right? Whereas if they come out with a medication you have to take for the rest of your life, then they've only got a set amount of time before every other company is producing the same thing.
Okay, fair.
Did you have something else to follow up on?
No, that clarifies his position.
The chill no topic panel is becoming an ANCAP interrogation, I love it.
That's not what my intention was. I had something.
You've done it.
I was driving towards. But basically, and I want to open up to the rest of you. Should we be privileging certain types of relationships? So if we rewind back to like, well, since before my
marriage and
computer
stuff,
collapsed, that the idea that the government should stay out of marriage, that we should that the government privileges marriage and gives it a ton of advantages, right? It's like, getting married is the most the biggest legal instance, like moment in most people's lives, right? Like that contract, like the level of responsibilities and the changes that happens in the law. There is no like bigger legal event in most people's lives, right? Like to get something bigger, you'd be like signing like a multi-billion-dollar deal, like a Skydance CBS merger. That's like a bigger thing. But other than that, right? For most people, it's like your marriage. People don't truly understand that. They don't truly understand all of like the rights and responsibilities, which in themselves is a whole conversation, right? But that's not really what I was driving towards. It's more that should the government be in that business altogether? Now, before I would have said yes. And the reason why I would have said that is because of the alternative that was being presented to me. So when conservatives talked about getting the government out of marriage, it was always in the context, previously anyway, always in the context of gay marriage, right? Meaning, hey, we want the ability to discriminate against these individuals. Yeah, I'm never going to agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm never, ever going to.
You should be able to discriminate. I get it. You're against freedom.
Well, there you go. Right. So I'm never going to agree to that. But if you reframe it as, hey, we can create a bunch of institutions, because the government's not going to go away, but we can create a bunch of institutions, some of them religious, right? And they'll have their straight marriages. I mean, they'll be like, Southern Baptists, right? Of course, right? And they'll be straight only. But we'll have, a bunch of other institutions that will provide for any other sort of type of marriage. if we do that, and then all the states still recognize all these marriages, well, then I'm fine, right? Because the state's not going to go away, right? As long as I need this, all I need the state to do is to recognize that this union has taken place, and we can go from there. But if instead we're saying, well, we want to allow states to decide which marriages they're going to validate, and which ones they're not, then I can't agree to that. So I'm trying to find like common ground here. One, do other people think that marriages should be involved with the government? That they should get those advantages? Maybe like you feel like there's quite a value into it, right? Like an argument for it, and I won't take all the time here. An argument for it would be that, hey, this encourages individuals to do something that's socially positive, like staying within the family unit, right, and gives them the tools to do so. Maybe you're of that mind. So I'm curious what you all think.
I would say
Someone else want to take it? Yeah.
as much as I'm in favor of marriage, either as a social or a contract involving the government. But at least I do think that, as I don't know all of the advantages that come along with getting married, but at least it seems to be. I'm more framing it as like you not getting married is sort of a penalty, so to speak, and I'm not in favor of that. As in, I would reduce some of the advantages that come with marriage. Well, government involved in marriage, so that people who aren't married are not so heavily penalized, or rather, like, I'm pretty much more or less just like recognizing the contract, and I guess for next of kin purposes and all that stuff. But largely, like, whatever, all the tax stuff I think is largely overblown.
No, I think people should be incentivized to be married, and like it promotes families in your like country. I think that's necessary. It's a necessary good. Right. I think they should have like incentives, and I don't think that having incentives to get married is necessarily like shaming or like, I don't know, punishing people for not getting married. It's just like, you want these incentives, go find, and you can do a fake marriage, right? You can do a contract marriage, or these things exist in the world. So I mean, I don't see it like.
What do you mean by fake marriage exactly?
I mean, there's lavender marriages, right? Where it's like a gay guy who marries a straight woman, and it's just like they aren't going to get married otherwise. They want the civil union, so on and so forth. They live together, they get the benefits of the marriage, and they live their days. So like there are contract marriages you can have
the government actually
into.
I don't actually know. I'm just curious. Does the government actually recognize that? And is there?
It's not like they're going around, like they're not going.
Unless it's
to
a
the
green
state
card,
hall.
nobody's fucking investigating it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even sometimes when it is a green card, I mean, if you put in enough fucking work, right, you can just like subvert and get yourself a green card marriage. Like these things exist. I don't see.
Yeah, I mean, it's green card marriages are fraud. But
what was that one movie?
It's the only type they.
I now pronounce you Bill and Steve, where it's like the two guys were trying to get married for specifically, I think it was insurance purposes. They lived in New York. They weren't gay, but they were roommates. One of the roommates had a good job and some good insurance. The other roommate didn't. And so like, I mean, I don't see. I think have a bunch of movies like and let people take advantage of them if they want to, right?
Yeah. So like my issue one, like and I'm not sure how strongly Scott feels about this idea of necessarily fraud when it comes to like a green card marriage or like this insurance thing. I didn't see that movie, but like that this storyline has been done before, right? So like
was that Sandra Bullock movie or whatever? She's like married her secretary.
Ask another old person. But when it's like when talking about like a green card marriage, right? So I looked into this, and I'm not getting married.
You needed a green card?
Yeah, need a green card. Yeah, well, maybe if I like try to escape to like the UK or something. Like what are the how do I get citizenship there? But no, I looked into this, and
as long as you have a VPN that says you're on the internet in America.
Yeah, I looked into this, and yeah, like they don't want a fake marriage, right? A marriage just for the green card. But then how do you judge the marriage? Right? Like how do you know? Like, okay, so what? are do these two people need to have a level of happiness, right? Do they have to have a level of attraction? Is there a minimum amount of sex they should be having with each other? When is it a real marriage, right? Compared to other marriages who, between two full citizens, natural citizens who never fuck, never do anything, right, and are extremely unhappy, right? But they got together for all the quote unquote right reasons. The idea is nonsense. It's simply the case that we have decided in this country that marriage will be the easiest entryway to citizenship, right? That's the path, right? So we force these people, we give them another incentive to go into marriage, right? That shouldn't exist otherwise. And to the point to my, but you're gonna like what I'm gonna say here, Scott. Because I was like I had these thoughts in my head. The reason I started thinking about this is because I saw a video, right, discussing these paper marriages in China. There's a term for them, but I forgot what it was. But basically it sounds like what it is. Two individuals, man and woman, definitely in China, man and woman. They get together and they marry. The reason why they're marrying is for social pressure, right? There's a lot. The social pressure to marry in China is a lot bigger than in America these days. And so like you're expected to do so. And there's so many reasons why it's just easier to be attached, and you're looked at worse, right? Like your status as an individual falls if you're like past 30 and not married, right? So they just they're literally finding people on the internet, right? They like put up like a posting on the internet, hey, I'm looking for one of these types of marriages, looking for someone who's cool, right? And we'll put together. Sometimes they don't actually even get married. Sometimes they just like do a ceremony like for the people and pretend they're married, right? So there's all kinds of ways to do that. And in Japan, apparently they have like friendship marriages where they're marrying like their best friends and they're just like cohabitating, but they're not like actually having sex with one another.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's a cheaper life.
Yeah. So and it's cheaper. So no, but okay. I don't. I got more. You're gonna like it. You're gonna like it, right? You're gonna like it.
You have more points.
I got more points, but you're gonna like.
I gotta get my notebook.
You're gonna like all the points.
Government. Scam the government. I'm all about it.
You're gonna like these points, Scott, because what I was thinking, what this inspired, I was thinking about like what my friend Scott loves to talk about all the time, market distortions, right? So we have a dating market, right? The social interaction market, this intimate market that we have, and people are making decisions all the time, right? In these markets. So like a part of it is, who to date to start with, how long I should stay with this person, will they be a good long-term partner? Okay, so I've decided to marry them. Should I marry them? Am I going to keep this marriage up? All this exists within the distortion of the government, which like gives you a whole bunch of advantages, like Ali was talking about previously, right? A whole list of advantages to get married, even though that may not be the best thing for you, right? For the individuals within that marketplace, right? This individual, your partner, right? They might be good fun, but not good for marriage. However, that's where all the benefits are, right? I want to access the benefits. I got to get married, right? And there's just a whole list of reasons to do so. So without that distortion, people would make different decisions, right? Some people would just get married altogether. It wouldn't make much of a difference for them because they're not thinking of those things. But a lot of other people wouldn't, right? And a lot of other people might consider some alternative family structures. But those alternative family structures aren't recognized by the government. And so they aren't actually like seriously considered. So like that, that put me in this mindset to reevaluate the situation. I was thinking, maybe the government should get out of the marriage market altogether. And so we'd have an even playing field and we could see what people do with that. And maybe what novel structures appear, right? Novel family structures appear that can't really exist now because the incentives are just way too high with the government there. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so I mostly agree with what you said. I'm not going to go line by line because that'd take forever, but I mostly agree with what you're saying. I think there is another element though. So I mean, basically what you said in a long term is just unintended consequences, right? Like, yeah, when you try and socially engineer your society, you're going to cause problems. And so the best way to fix the problems is to get rid of unnatural government enforced incentive structures. This idea that like the government is good at like, incentivizing families is just, it's insane. It's an insane fantasy that a lot of conservatives have. Which is like, oh, marriages are good for all these reasons, so we should incentivize marriages. Well, the problem is that all of the things you said and much more about why that's not good and how it waters them down. But I think from zooming out a little bit, I think because we were talking about this a little bit with when it comes to books earlier and things of that nature, right? Is that the state will make decisions, and the market does this as well, because we were talking about it from the market perspective. Where there is a kind of like a cultural belief system or a set of traditions, and they don't really understand the value of them or where they come from. They just understand that they're here and that they're good. And so the idea is like, well, marriage is good for all of these reasons, and it's just a bunch of correlational data. Right? It's like, oh, people are happier when they're married. They tend to stay together. The families, right? It's all these correlations, right? And it's like, so what we should do is we should pull the levers of people's behavior and try and socially engineer more of this. And the problem is twofold. Number one is that you change the thing itself by incentivizing it. By saying like, by giving it a tax break, by doing all this, like, you change it, right? So now there are people that want to be involved in this cultural institution that would previously have not been involved in it. And so they cheapen and water down what it is. And then the second thing is that just because it's good right now doesn't necessarily mean it will be good 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future when the cultural context of that institution changes. And so what do we have now is we have green card marriages, as you pointed out. You have contract marriages, as you pointed out. One of the biggest problems we have with divorce rates is serial monogamous, right? So you have people that grew up religious but aren't actually faithful in their religious beliefs. And so they get married and divorced and married and divorced and married and divorced. And it's actually more chaotic and problematic. Then you add like divorce laws to this situation. You get this even bigger, messier, muddier thing. And a lot of men are getting fucked over by that. And so because the state's involved, now you have a reverse incentive, which is a lot of men, because of the state's involvement, don't want to get married because it's not you and your family and your church coming together to make a commitment. Now it is this thing that gives women legal power over your property and the ability to fuck you at any moment. It's like I'm ceding power to you because the government has decided that if you get one of your friends tells you that I'm not good enough, or society starts telling you that like you settled and that you're a 10 and like et cetera, what all these different pressures that you're having, right? Or just if I'm an asshole, like whatever it may be, when a divorce occurs, now I'm financially fucked for life. Or at the very least, I lose half of my property that I work towards, and I might have to pay alimony, and I don't get to live in my house. I got to go pay rent in an apartment. I'm going to struggle to eat, and I'm making six figures, and I'm going to be financially poor and destitute. So there's all kinds of problems the moment the government gets involved in it, because it's no longer a natural thing.
Well, hold on, wait. Okay. You said all of that, and all I heard at the tail end of like the specific tail end of it was that men are now being more specific if they're going to get married, right? And like maybe a lot of men are choosing not to get married, right? But they are being more choosy about who they get married to, lest they go through they don't want to go through a divorce or a vicious divorce and lose all their money. So they're being more choosy about who their life partners are, which I think is actually a good thing in the long term. And so like. Yes, I agree with you that like we shouldn't have the government tied into like everything. The unfortunate part is we do right now. So if we just strip incentives from married people, right, that's all we're gonna end up doing. Like it's just incentives stripped, and no one's gonna have like any beneficial gain, right? Like if the equalizer is dropping down to like 0, then like no, I'm okay, right? I actually I kind of prefer friendship marriages and contract marriages potentially to like love marriages sometimes, because like if you have two best friends who have been best friends forever and they're getting into the marriages because of like the benefits and because it's like economically just like feasible for them, I don't see an issue with that. Whether it be for like insurance that they have to pay, like we have to live within a government structure, right? So like if we have to live within, then I think like take the loophole and use it to your advantage, right? If you're not like, and then you don't have to necessarily look for a love marriage. Maybe we work on divorce laws.
You're comparing.
I think
you're comparing two
that's
different
something to
things,
look at.
right? And like you're comparing two different things that aren't necessarily equal. You're comparing individual choice within the current system versus ought we be doing the system at a meta scale, right? Like, so I agree with you in the current context, right? It may behoove some people to get into a contract marriage for whatever their personal reasons are. It may be more beneficial to them. Why would you not do something that is potentially beneficial to you? That's different than ought the state be creating these incentives, and are they, and is it a good thing for society or a good thing for our culture to like push the levers away from what is a natural tendency of people and their beliefs?
But the answer to that is always going to be no, right? Like the answer to that is always going to be that we shouldn't let like a small group of people dictate what the larger group of people are doing. But that's like one of the the fate of humanity is just that we do it. That's the cycle that we live in, is we end up picking leaders and we think that, you know, we hope that they have the best interest for it. They never do. Because the answer is always going to be no. Like government should obviously not be involved in like certain things. Maybe like in China, obviously they're going to have an incentive structure for people to get married. It's going to be heavily focused on that because they had that whole thing where they didn't, you know, they weren't having kids, and now they need kids, right? So they're just trying to repopulate. Less they don't want to bring in like a bunch of immigrants, right? They want Chinese people
that's
populate
the thing, right?
China.
So let's look at birth rates, right? So for example, people that are married have a more stable home, correlationally speaking, right? Than people that are non-married, especially when we talk about having children. And so the government looks at that and goes, oh, well, if we incentivize marriage, maybe we'll have like some fix on the birth rate problem, because we'll be getting people in these like things together. And the problem that I see is that I don't see any evidence that that's working, even in the short term, much less the long term. I'm not seeing any evidence to suggest that if you use the state to try and get people to get married, that the birth rates increase. So for example, in China is having a population problem. And one of the major reasons for China's population problem was that they had the, you know, one child policy. Okay. And so they got rid of the one child policy like ages ago, right? It's been like, but the problem is that the cultural context that they created from the government incentives are still there, of like, it's morally wrong to have children. You know, a woman that, you know, has a bunch of kids is like a piece of shit. And like, they know that to feed, house, take care of their elderly population, that they need population growth, right? Despite how many people they have, you know, they have an aging population, and it's not being replaced to the same degree. So it's going to get more and more expensive, you know, in terms of GDP per capita, in order to house and take care of the elderly. And so there are these constant unintended consequences that occur from the government trying to incentivize what it believes to be good behavior, because I don't think it's actually incentivizing behavior. It's incentivizing a contract that they associate with that behavior. And I don't know that the evidence is that strong that just by incentivizing one, you actually incentivize the behavior. In many ways, it does the opposite.
So Japan's probably a little bit better of an example of like what I would like. So like in Japan, in China, the issue was that they propagandized their like citizens into thinking like, one, if you have more than one kid, and if it's a female, that shit's bad. Like just like all the shit that you were saying. So like you have the after effects of like generations, that shit being that mentality being passed down. So like obviously you're gonna have a different fight. Like you're not gonna trust the government as much when they're doing it. But like in Japan, for example, when their issue was that like the men are kind of like overworked, or they're just not interested in finding relationships, and you have all these cafes that are kind of catering to like date nights and so on and so forth. So people aren't getting into relationships. They're having their reproductive like issues there. It makes sense that the government thinks like, hey, please just get together in any way, shape, or form. And the best relationship like structure we know how to like promote is a marriage, right? Like, what else would like Japan or even China do? Like, what other relationship structure are they meant to like promote, to like at least think that would help to like get kids other than like marriage?
So I want to.
I mean, I have an answer. Nobody here is going to like it, but I have the right answer.
So hold on to that. Because I wanted to go to our friend Doobie. I believe he's back. Like I can
yes, I am.
sense his evil. Now, so I wanted to bring you in because I know you have my friend Doobie is a very unique individual. Very unique thoughts when it comes to the government and devising behavior. And I felt like maybe he's not quite the exact opposite of Scott, but he has he certainly has always seemed to be far more open to that idea. So yeah, we had been. I'm not sure how much you heard or didn't hear, but yeah, we've been talking about like the government maybe getting out of marriages because the government, has these, some would say positive effects, some would say deleterious effects, but in any case, effects on the marriage market that changes people's behavior one way or the other. But whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's worthwhile for the government to be involved in this? That it can have a mostly positive effect, or is it having a mostly positive effect? Or do you, or would you consider the government removing itself to the extent that it can, removing itself from this situation altogether and kind of letting things play out? Or what are your thoughts, Stevie?
I don't know. I honestly, I haven't been able to follow much of the conversation just because I'm having my house sanitized tomorrow because I've had COVID for the last week. So I don't want to bring my wife and son back without, making sure everything is cleaned up.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I haven't followed. I was setting that up, so I just haven't listened to most of the conversation. So I'd like to hear more about it because I just don't know much about the specific situation you're talking about.
Well, okay. Well, let me try to paint it a bit more for you. All right. So what I was saying to our friend Scott is that, I'll try to do this a lot quicker than before. Is that I had been watching a video, right? And it was talking about like marriages in China. How people are doing like paper marriages, contract marriages, where like they were just doing it for social pressure, right? Because their parents and the whatnot say like you got to get married, right? And they won't leave them alone. Maybe like they won't even give them property, right? They might not even give them an inheritance if they don't do that marriage, right? So they got to do the marriage. So they go online, they literally make a post online, and they're like, "Hey, I want to get a marriage with someone. Not gonna be intimate, not gonna be anything like that, right? We may not even live in the same house. That's another thing, right? They can be completely separate. But I wouldn't get married. And sometimes they don't actually even literally get married. They just do like a ceremony to twist their parents, right? Let them think they were married, and then like go off and continue their life, right? That's the situation that they're doing. Anyway, it got me thinking about how the government and just social pressures in general like alter the marriage market. How they distorts things. I had always been against the idea of the government getting out of marriage because conservatives always presented as, hey, allow us to discriminate against the gays. And I'm never going to be for that. Scott is for that, of course, because he's for all kinds of awful things. But anyway, beyond that, freedom.
Though. I get it. You hate freedom.
I do.
You hate freedom of association.
I do, actually. But anyway, so there was that, right? So I was rejected the idea of marriage being away from the government if it's just going to allow people to discriminate. But I do realize that the government puts its foot on the pedal, right? Where people within the marriage market are making decisions with the idea that marriage comes with a whole list of advantages, economic advantages, as well as social, right? And that directs them. Like, for instance, if you are a poor family, right, poor individuals, a poor collection of individuals, and you want access to certain government benefits to like for housing or whatnot, right? Like a lot of people realize I got to get married, right? That's where we say that you are now deserving of this thing. Now, are their partner the person they should be with? Is their partner the person who is going to take care of their children? Be a good influence in the family as a whole? Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out, right? But they got to get the money. And because this is the avenue that we have picked to say that now you are deserving of all this. So if we remove the government from that entirely, right? Then people are now not like guided by those incentives. And might make different choices and maybe make different alternative family structures that we don't actually really consider nowadays because the advantages of like man-woman marriage are just so great. So does that help you there? Get your juices thinking?
Yeah, but let me think about it for a bit.
Okay, all right, it's fine.
I feel like I'm kind of torn at the moment.
So
Okay.
like, Prime, is the alternative now that you don't think? Well, like, what's the alternative, right? Is it that like there should be no incentive for like marriage, or like what are you thinking?
Sorry. FK, I forgot to put you in the group DM. Let me add you there. So now that's the other thing I was going to say. I was going to say this for a little later, but since you asked me, is that like right now, you know, I'm agreeing a lot with Scott, except for the fact that I also want these families to be helped.
Wait, why?
Like,
what's the agreement? What's the issue with like what's your issue?
well, sure, yeah, my issue is that people are making choices not necessarily because they are right for their family in terms of like is this a good partner, right? Like the partnership that I'm going to enter, is this actually beneficial for me, like, you know, intimately and like long term, or is this like a better economic deal, right? Because the government has made it so, right?
Yeah, but that structure has existed like I don't mean to cut you off, but that structure existed like specifically in like Asian, I guess, cultures, right? Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, like that like structure has been there forever. So it's like you're not gonna necessarily get rid of it. So like by like choosing by de-incentivizing people from getting married, by stripping the incentives away from married people, all you're really doing is like to your point, fucking over these people that are getting together, like for their economic situation. So like Asian families like in America have done this forever. They're like, hey, we have like an inheritance, but like you get married, be a structured person. We're not just gonna give it to like a playboy single like bachelor, right? We want you to be like married. We want you to like have like a family, and then you get this, and like there's an incentive for you to live I guess a structured life.
Yeah. So I mean, I hear you. Yeah, these are incentives that they're creating. I'm not sure
Even cultural, not even through government. Is what I'm saying. Like even just cultural incentives.
No, okay. Let's pull back. Right. What do I actually want? Right. I want people to get the help that they need. Right.
Yeah.
Regardless. I want people to get support, right? And this is where Scott and I are definitely going to differ, like heavily, right? But I want people to get support, and that's what they need. If there are single mothers, right, but they got kids, just because they're not attached to a man, shouldn't lock them out of like programs or like whatever, right?
Fair.
So we
Wait
should
for you to say something I disagree with.
But that's a family structure that's recognized, right? Like it's recognized that if you have a kid, you're like considered a fammy.
No,
This is where Scott and I disagree. I believe in good things, unlike Scott. Like, fuck off.
But no, hold on.
I want single moms to not starve.
I'm being But like I'm saying, it should be recognized that like a single mother and a child is a family, right? There is like a unit to be considered.
Yeah. So again, so you agree? I know you don't disagree with that, right? But I was saying that the preferred family unit by our government, right, is man woman, but these days at least, you know, man woman woman.
Cisgendered straight couple, yes, that's the preferred.
Yeah, but that's it's the preferred. That's where you get the most amount of access to resources, both on the governmental level and on like charitable levels, right? All of it relies on this, and that changes people's behaviors, and not always a good thing. Like it's simply like our friend Scott was saying, there's a correlation with happiness, right? But part of that happiness is like economic security and social status
Yeah,
that you
stability.
gain with all these things, right? Some of them, yes,
Part of it is the institution
But
that
that's like a big part of most
that is
people's
being
happiness,
watered
right?
down by the government.
Why is it watered down? I
I
don't get it. If you're living together and you are working as a unit and you're paying all your bills together, like you are married. You just like
Come on,
unless you take
come on,
unless you're
this
applying
is
religion
not a serious
to it.
question,
Also,
right?
why is the
I'm being
government-
very no. I'm being serious. So like unless in your mind, unless because I don't believe it is for you that like
sound
marriage is a
muffled,
religious
FK.
thing, is like a religious institution, right? I think at this point, marriage is just like
never mind. That might be
the civil union that we agreed upon. We just agreed upon that word at this point in time. So like I don't get how it's
even if
watered
it's
down.
secular, right?
Yeah.
If it is brought about, if it exists in one state, right? And there are people that would choose to be married, and then there are people that would choose not to be married. And then the government comes in and says, we will incentivize people who otherwise wouldn't have gotten married, wouldn't have made that commitment public to their family or their church or whatever, because there's now a financial institution, right? Then whatever that thing was before is invariably going to change by having people that would not have participated in before if not for the new government incentives. Now, you may say it's not that big a deal or it's not that watered down. We can argue about the levels of degrees to which it's watered down, but obviously the institution changes when you incentivize people to become a part of an institution that would otherwise not have done so.
I understand your awe. I'm just saying, like, I just prefer dealing in what is, right? So, like, right now, at this point in time,
I'm not dealing with an odd. I'm dealing with what it is. I'm literally, I just gave you a
you're saying it's changed, but
argument.
I'm agreeing to you that it has changed. I agree. Where we've gone from like,
well, then you agree that it's watered down.
Watered down, but I don't know what watered down means anymore. Because like I think if you have a home unit and you are like you're paying all your bills together, you're living together, you are like I think this does constitute a marriage now. So like sure it's watered down, but like I don't see the issue with it being watered down. What's the negative on society with it being watered down? If there are like friendship marriages,
that's a
like
different conversation.
Lavender marriages or contract.
I'm willing to. I'm willing to have that conversation.
I know that's a different conversation.
That's
the conversation I'm trying to have. I'm trying to figure out what's the problem with it being watered down. That is the conversation I want to have. You're right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just saying it is by definition, right, changed, and and by and that's what I mean by watered down, right? Is whatever the core principles of the thing were before. They are. It is now larger and less, and it's now larger and more encompassing of principles and values that are previously were outside of it that are now
more
inside.
People can now take advantage of government benefits that we have to live within anyway. So I think it's a good thing that more people have found loopholes to take advantage of government benefits.
I mean, it's like I don't know, like being a gamer, right? Like there's going to be a group of gamers who are like hardcore, and in it for the love. Literally the love of the game, right? Then there are going to be people who are like just casually attached to it, but enjoy their time, right? But like, what if the government said like, well, like you get a whole list of like very important benefits, like housing benefits. You got to be gaming for like 10 hours, like
I think that's
week,
a weird.
Right?
I think that's a weird incentive, but we do that socially,
but I'm
right?
just saying, like, it would bring in individuals who are like gaming because they want to, but they don't necessarily want to.
We do that right now, though.
Right?
We do that right now with streaming or like with gaming competitions or whatever it may be. If you put in the hours on Kick, you'll get paid. You'll get paid a fee. It's not through government, right? But socially, we socially do that.
That's a totally different thing. That's totally different. That's hold on. Yes, it is. It's totally different, right? To have the difference between that and what streaming is, and then guaranteed income or benefits, right? With a governmental promise saying that you're going to get these benefits if you do these actions, right? Like you are then entitled to these benefits. Streaming entitles you to nothing, right? You can put in all the hours and still never get a fucking thing, right? So in any case, so you would get a whole bunch of people who are like gamers who don't actually give a fuck about gaming, right? Like, and I know it's a weird abstract example, but it's just like trying to help people like understand.
I would question what the problem is if they are gaming. Like, if the structure is like, hey, you have to game for 10, you have to be a hardcore gamer, and then you have a bunch of people who otherwise wouldn't be hardcore gamers being hardcore gamers to get like some benefits. I don't see what the issue would be.
Would it not change what a gamer is?
Yeah, It
I
changes the
don't
idea
think
of
so.
what a
You're putting
gamer
in
is.
the hours still, like,
No,
right?
no,
That
no,
is what
no,
a
no.
gamer
Come on, now
is.
you're just
The
being
idea of a
silly.
gamer has changed. The idea of a gamer has changed
No,
from like
I'm
point A
not
to
being
point
silly.
B,
I'm
right?
being honest.
Yeah.
Like, here's my issue. Wait. I actually agree with you, Ollie. But my issue is Prime. It sounds like what you're arguing for is just we get rid of the idea of marriage and you just have some standard of care you give
Yeah.
people from like point A to point B of life, right? Like
No, that's
birth
not what
to
I'm
death.
arguing at all. And that's not what I'm
Wait,
arguing
why
at all.
wouldn't that be the case of what you want? Like, why do you need marriage to be an institution? Why not just have that level of care from like, if there's a kid that's born here, this is how we take care of them. If there's like a person at this age, this is how we take care of them.
Oh, no. Okay, fine. The part that I'm pushing back against is getting rid of marriage, right? Like I'm fine with institution as it
It's the
stands, and in
incentives.
fact, I wanted to expand the
Yeah.
institution. I want to explore alternative ways to create family structures, right? I want to give people the space to do so, and not incentivize
You don't have
them
to explore that.
otherwise
If
to
you
fit
just
into.
if you just get rid of the institution as a whole and you just let people like you just give people the aid and you allow them to explore however they want to like explore relationships, you get what you want.
Hold on 1 second though. People like the idea of marriage. They like of the security of like a partner making this promise to them and staying within this like societal structure, right? They like the trappings of it all. There's so many things they like, right?
Yeah, they like a contract.
And it gives them a psychic benefit as well. There's so many things, and I'm fine with all of that, right? And again, I'm looking for also alternative structures as well. Now, separately from that, okay, then there's the benefits, right? And yes, now I would agree with you. Now I'm more willing to give people benefits, right? Depending on where they are in life, right? Like benefits that you're entitled to as a child, right? No child should ever go hungry in this country, ever. No child should ever go hungry. And then benefits into like adulthood, right? Like,
There's
well,
some
and also they
factors.
should also be schooled. They should have access to higher education, if that's what they want, or trade schools. Then we should make sure people are housed, because housing shouldn't be a commodity, right? That we deny some people. Like, there's so much I would give to people. And then of course some medical benefits, right? I would separate that entirely from their marriage status, from the marriage status of the parents, right? I would separate those things entirely, but I wouldn't necessarily get rid of marriage. They would just be decoupled.
I run into the issue of if because I wouldn't disagree with you if we could live in that world of just we provide all the needs and necessities to people that they need. That would be fine, right? I agree with all those ideas. No kid should no kid should be left hungry, so on and so forth. My issue runs into once you get to that world, I don't think you need to provide any incentive structures for marriage. I think the ideal world is a world where people are allowed to be given the amount of freedom they want to explore in a healthy manner and in a way that like leaves them some leeway that if they do fail in that exploration, they still have some bare minimum they can work out from. When it comes to marriage, my issue is I don't think we can really get rid of the institution because I think that institution as a whole depends on this idea that like when we put into our government, we are paying these taxes. We like get these gains from our system as a whole, right? I get to buy everything I buy. I get to do everything I do in this country with the freedom I have. But we also have an understanding that like there's tiers to how we judge people in the system and what their cost is and what their gain is. And the ideal is that the reason we give these people a benefit, not just for marriage, but the idea is marriage with a hope that they're going to eventually have kids and they get more gains for having kids, right? Is because we have now this infinite potential to continually gain from them, but we need to put in some investment so that gain is like profitable in the end for us. I don't know how you're going to get rid of that institution other than having your like utopian system of you have all your needs met and then the institution doesn't need to exist because our needs are dealt with and then it's just our wants.
I don't necessarily think that. And it's possible that I'm misunderstanding you, and that could be. If I am, then I do apologize. But yeah, I think if you decouple these things, and maybe we're saying the same thing. I'm not sure, but if we decouple these things, then yes, people will be free to make their choices, right? Like without any unwanted incentives, right? They will figure out mostly. Well, they'll have a better chance of figuring out what's best for themselves. People make foolish decisions about their intimate lives all the time, right? So that doesn't change. But like that won't be compounded with the thought that like literally for my survival, I need to attach myself to this other person. That like if I get pregnant, right, within a relationship, that child is still going to be taken care of, right? So I don't necessarily have to worry about like being attached to this man. And I can wait for the exact right.
You're still attached to him. You just
like
only
Well,
financially
yeah.
attached to the
Not
force of a
financially.
gun.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
right?
I'm going to be honest. I think in some cases, the government should force people to be attached to each other. They don't have to be married to each other. But if it is the case that there's like a co-parenting situation where both parents are toxic to each other supremely, there should be a looming threat of you're going to lose your kids.
What? What? So
I think
Stay
That's like the
together and
worst
abuse
option.
your children, or else we'll put
No,
them in
not just
CPS
abuse
to
your
be
children.
abused.
Not just abuse your children.
Win-win.
do you mean,
Win-win. Either way,
That's
the
like
child
the
gets abused.
Literally
You should
the
run on
worst
that.
option
Run
you
for
just gave us,
president.
FK.
I am pro child abuse. One way or the
That's
other.
the
These kids are
worst
getting
of all
fucked.
options. FK, please explain yourself. I want you to give you space to explain yourself.
I mean, I
Yeah, I get what
understand.
he's
I
saying.
understand that our child foster
Wait,
system is
can-
very
can I try to
poor,
steal
and I
on you real
understand that
quick?
it needs a lot of work. But aside from the foster system as a whole, as it is, I'm talking about that argument in its own, where it's like there should be some threat or incentive
Incentivize
there
people to work on their
who are
shit.
parenting. Yeah, exactly. You can't just
Incentivize
hate each
people.
other and have.
That's
a kid
the
with
argument
each other.
he's making. He's not saying it should be
That's-
implemented tomorrow.
no.
He's saying in his ideal world, that would be the implementation, right? The implementation would be like, hey, you guys got together, you had a kid. It's the best structure would be for you guys to live together, work on your shit, right? Otherwise, you're going to be split. You're going to be paying separate rent, separate mortgages, separate whatever, all this bullshit. Now
And
your
you can be
kids,
split
now
if
your
you
kid,
wanna
now
be
your
split,
kid
but
is
you can't be
suffering.
toxic and split.
I've seen these marriages. I've seen marriages where they
This
get
is-
divorced and the husband and
no.
wife. It's kind of it's pretty common in
Dude,
like
this
Middle
is
Eastern.
awful. So like,
why is it awful?
Hold on. In the separate video, right? Not the video I was referring to previously, right? It was talking about China, right? And it was talking about specifically the problem of getting a divorce. Now, I haven't like deeply researched this, so if I do say anything wrong, I do apologize. Right? I'm not trying to give misinformation, but this is my understanding based on that video. My understanding is that the government disincentivizes getting divorced, specifically so that like, hey, you both individuals have to agree, right? So like one can't just simply initiate the divorce, right? You gotta get both to
They don't have
agree.
no fault divorce.
And specifically, right? Like they give you a 6-month cooling off period, right? And then with it after that 6 months, then you can apply for the divorce, unless one of these individuals says, "I'm not so sure" at that point. And then,
Brother,
one second.
as the only divorced man here, that's the law in the U.S. too.
Yeah, and as a product of divorce,
Like
that's
you
a good
can't
law.
file for divorce immediately. Like you have to
Yeah, as a
literally
product of divorce,
wait
that's
6
a good
months to a year before you can file for divorce.
Okay, well then that's awful, right?
That's
You can
Why is it
file for
awful?
like legal separation, but then you can't actually file the divorce.
why is it
later.
awful?
I've
To
actually
clarify
seen-
to you, I don't.
That's
My
more
issue
an
is I don't disagree with the idea of like one party divorce. I think that's fine. I think there are situations where you need to do that. But I think in the everyday average situation of two partners become like resentful of each other or very much dislike each other and they want to separate, in those situations, we probably should have some incentives there of like, hey,
Therapy.
the state might pay for you to go to counseling and we'll see if we can work it out with each other. Hey, maybe you do need some time apart, so we'll give you some time apart. And in that time apart, you guys are going to have to figure out how to deal with your kid. And if that works in a healthy manner, then maybe we can actually like have you do co-parenting separate
Right,
from
what
each
would
other.
time
and deal with
apart
your
look
kid
like
that
from
way.
the government's
What
perspective?
happens? Okay, hold on. I know this is
But
such
hold
a
on,
meme,
before
but like,
you
what-
do it, before you do it,
hold-
Scott, I know Scott, I know you have a lot to say, and I do apologize. But FK, could you Aiko, you want to jump in sometime too? All right, so I'll get you
it
after
would probably
Scott.
be some.
And Corey, okay. So we'll go.
In case-
We'll go to it'll be FK, Scott, Aiko, Corey. But hold on, but FK, help me out here. This separation. What is this separation from the government's perspective? Will the government pay for you to have separate apartments?
The ideal would be it would be after attempting to work out the relationship through counseling or through some other means, right?
Okay.
If that doesn't work, and it does seem like the marriage is going to be a separated marriage, then the next step would probably be the government being like, hey, you guys have to have an agreed upon amount of time that you're going to spend separate from each other. and you're going to have some agreed upon system of how you're going to manage dealing with your kid with each other. If this can be like dealt with in an amenable manner, that's nice.
What if you
If
can't?
not,
What if you
government
can't? What if
have
you're
to
too
be really
poor
hardcore
to like
about, like,
have time?
this is
Like,
exactly how it should go.
what does
And
that
if it
look
looks like both parties like both don't want to work with each other at all. Now, I'm not talking about in a situation where one wants to work and one doesn't care. If the one that doesn't care, they lose their fucking kid because you didn't care enough to fight for
So
your
a
kid.
government
But if
bureaucrat
both
has to
parties-
decide, hey, like whether you've put enough work into your marriage before you deserve a divorce.
I mean, you guys talked
Well, I
about it
mean,
with
if
citizens
you put
earlier, and
yourself
I
in a
agree,
position
yeah,
where you have to
kinda
prove
do.
your marriage, you're the one who put yourself in, like, if you're a couple who has a kid,
Oh my
if you're a
God.
couple who has a kid and you got married, right? And then you guys are having spats and arguments, you're going to have to get divorced legally one way or another, right? And so the government is trying to, like, disincentivize divorce, because divorce is not a good thing. Just if
So-
like to FK's point,
and-
you are just
About
having
the
basic
government's
disagreement.
agreement
unless
on,
hold
like,
on, unless it is to,
it's not just profit.
it
It's
doesn't
not a
have-
good thing for the kid in the long run. It is not a
It
good thing to have a
isn't.
kid in a split family.
No, hold on, wait a minute. Oh my God. But no, it is infinitely better to have a kid in a split marriage rather than an acrimonious marriage. And I'm not talking about abuse. We're gonna leave like domestic
Yeah,
abuse.
That's why we
we're
try
gonna
to deal with
leave sexual
acrimonious
abuse.
marriages.
We're gonna
We
leave
should
that.
have
We're
more
gonna leave that
steps
all
to
out of
deal
it.
with.
Through
Like it
counseling
is
and so on and so
infinitely
forth. So
better
there's- yeah.
to have a child, right, in
Yes.
a split family, right, rather than an acrimonious family when the parents fucking hate each other, right? But a government
Yes.
bureaucrat is telling them, sorry, you don't deserve to leave each other. And so
If we
so
can't
you
give
will
up on the
stay
children-
That isn't
until
what he
the
was
government
saying.
decides.
You went on a
That isn't
whole
what he
rant
was
earlier.
crazy.
Prime. You went on a
That isn't
whole
what he
rant
was
earlier
saying.
about no kid should go hungry, no kid should go homeless, but kids should go familyless. If we have all these barriers of like what
If
we
it's
do to try to make a
acrimonious,
kid's life
they're
as
not
good as
familyless.
possible,
Hold on.
one of those barriers, like it or not, is
That's not
making sure that
familyless.
we can do everything we can to try to make a family healthy.
Hold
And
on.
if it can't be healthy,
You snuck
then we
in
need
some
them to be
bullshit
healthy
there.
separated.
You snuck in some bullshit. Oh, the familyness. What familyness, right? No, they have a family, right? The father or the mother, one of them, is simply away from them,
He
right?
said that.
They'll
He
have
said
to
if
go
they can do
visit them
co-parenting-
on
he said-
weekends or
I
whatever
said
the
that
fuck,
they can
right? That's
co-parent.
not
They
no
have to have
family.
an
But you
amenable
snuck that
co-parenting
in. No, you snuck
situationship.
that shit
No, he
in.
didn't.
It's not.
No, he
hold on.
didn't.
You snuck that shit in, saying, "Oh, there's no family." Like another option. Now you're saying, "Well, kids should have no family." Yeah, that's bullshit. No, kids have families. I'm saying it's a much better situation rather than
Yeah,
He didn't sneak it in.
Prime,
He didn't
Prime,
sneak
you're
it
missing
in.
a
When you
big
wait,
part.
when you
Yes,
asked
I
him to
said if we're
clarify,
not going to give up on kids going hungry, we're not going to give up on kids going homeless. Why are we giving up on kids' families? We should at
We're
least
not
put
giving
as
up
much
on their
effort as we
families.
can.
We're not giving up on their
because
families.
you're disagreeing with my argument, which is not to give up, which is we put in as much effort as we can
No.
to make the relationship together amenable.
You're
and
missing-
also
you guys are-
the
you're missing each
addition-
other.
No,
If it's not-
at least stop telling me I'm
Prime,
missing something. I'm not
Prime,
fucking
the
missing. I'm
addition-
not fucking missing anything.
are.
No, like what I'm saying is that like I'm not giving up on the family. I'm giving up on an arrangement, right? If this arrangement is not harmonious or whatever, or one person just wants to fucking leave, whatever the case may be, if that arrangement is not harmonious, then we should abandon that arrangement. But I'm not talking about abandoning the family. The family is still in place. The father is still the father, right? No matter where he is on the planet, right? The mother is still the mother in that same way, right? They still are a family unit, simply with a different configuration. Right? So no, we're not giving up on the family. And in any case, right, in terms of support for that family, in terms of my solution, other people disagree with me on this one, I would still give them the same level of support regardless of that marital status. So no, I'm not giving up on any family at all. The arrangement, and it's certainly not, I wouldn't stuff people in an arrangement in which they fucking hate each other, they can't stand each other, and that shit leaks to the children. They have to deal with the mother,
It's going to leak
mommy,
to
and
them
daddy
anyway. If they hate
yelling
each
at
other and they can't find a way to be amenable with each other, it leaks to them.
Did you say? I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, if they hate each other already and they literally can't find a way to deal with each other, it's going to leak to the children. So at that point, fuck you. You don't care enough about your kid to deal with your shit.
Yeah, let them leave and they'll be happier, and then they can raise their kids without hating,
what he
being
was
next to the
saying,
person they
though.
hate. It's toxic situation. It's awful.
No, you're not just allowed to leave with your kid. If we our
Leave
goal
with
as a
your
system should
kid.
be provide
No,
the
no,
background
no,
of
that isn't what he said.
provide
either.
the background. The foster care issue is the issue I feel like you're having here.
No, I didn't
If
mention
we-
foster at all.
But what I'm talking about is our goal in a system should be one where, let's say we could get to that ideal and we have a great ideal foster care system. If you as a parent can't deal with your shit between you and the person you decided to fuck and have a kid with, and now that's going to leak to them, and your goal is like, oh, I could just leave, and now my kid doesn't have to deal with the leaking because I just got rid of one of their parents. Fuck you. No, you don't get to
So
keep
then
your
you
kid
s-
and
oh,
run.
then you s-
Your
oh, that's
kid
what
is
you're
now
saying.
gonna.
Then
It's
now
not your
the
product
government
anymore.
steals their kid, right? Instead, even a better situation is that we
I would say
separate
yes,
them.
because
Now
to me, it's
you
a form of
abandon them, the
neglect.
family. You separate them entirely from
You are
either
providing
parent, right?
emotional
As a
neglect.
punishment because the government thinks that, hey, you haven't done enough. The government,
Yeah, and we can be nice about it. They
relationship,
can come visit.
the relationship counselor, right, decides you haven't done enough work, right, which also means you don't deserve your children. This is a fucking awful
Prime.
idea.
And if the
Holy
psychologist
shit.
decides you're not sane enough, you go into the fucking mental house. Like, what do you mean? It
That's
does.
the
Yeah,
same.
there's
You
people
might
that have
not
to
be
make
saying,
these
hey,
decisions.
hey, Corey, because you don't want to stick around with your girlfriend, you must not be sane, right? And so the prescriptions there are the same. Yes, we'll take you away from your children, right?
Sorry, if you don't love your kid
rather
enough
than-
to be able to like make
rather
shit
than
work with your
anything
girlfriend,
else.
you're not sane.
This is the
That's the truth.
craziest thing.
All
Scott,
right,
I'm glad.
Scott,
so
I
let
get
me-
that.
I
yeah.
feel the libertarian
Yeah,
seeping
so-
into my fucking mind right now. But please go ahead,
Do you know how
Scott.
many kids get
Yeah.
used in like
We'll go
divorce?
to Scott, we'll go to Ike, we'll go to Corey.
Yeah, so it's
Ollie, the issue is they're all tokens, but people
so,
just like it when they're a token for them. I'm talking about
good?
kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, what I'm hearing mostly, and obviously it's from a libertarian perspective, is government caused a bunch of problems in relationships and marriage. And so what we'll do is we'll involve the
Oh,
government.
because
who already
humans
fucked
don't
up
have fucking
relationships.
drama. Retards
Hey,
were killing each other with rocks
FK,
before the government came in to sign a contract.
FK. You done? Would you like to present an argument
Are you
when
gonna
I'm
say
done?
the
or-
government made everything happen and it's not just people at its core being idiots? Like we're fucking apes.
Well, no, I'm just wondering if, like, I know, like you got high on the retard juice in this last conversation. I'm just wondering if you'll let me make my argument before you straw man it.
You should make
And
better
interrupt.
arguments, but
They
continue.
make it in juice form now.
Well, I mean, I could just yell random words and make better arguments than your retarded fascism. Like, so
Very
anyways, it's not a joke. I mean it literally. Like, it's just fascism is all you're preaching. Is the government being involved deeply into interpersonal relationships to try and
People should be
maintain
allowed
the
to breed their
the-
kids on farms.
the family structure. Yeah. So the government has created a lot of marital issues, and obviously it's not all at the feet of the government, but Social Security, welfare, no fault divorce laws, in a marriage system where we have, economic, equitable distribution of property, et cetera. So we already have a ton of incentives towards women to separate in marriages, right? The government, you have politicians saying that there's something morally evil about young men not making enough money or utilizing government resources because those government resources need to be given to single mothers, right? The government is in the business of taking wealth from young men, making it difficult for them to start businesses or, set up an empire or buy homes, etc., making it difficult for them to be a provider so that money can be funneled to women, and using children as a tool in that regard. And so the idea that you're then going to add another layer of government problems, which is, I know Prime Kais doesn't want to bring it up, but like the whole reason feminists fought for no fault divorce was because of abusive marriages, right? And the idea that you are going to have the government try and force you through counseling when someone is afraid to
It
speak
doesn't
and
have to be
afraid
for an
to.
abusive marriage. If
No,
you're
of
like
course not.
obviously being beat, that was a caveat. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure I put in
obviously,
earlier.
you're
okay,
obviously
so-
being
yeah, but here's
abused.
So now you're going to have a government. Now you're going to make them go through this difficult process, but this difficult process can be streamlined if they accuse their husband of abuse. Yeah, that can have unintended consequences. That'll never be a
they'd have to
fucking
go-
problem.
They'd have to go through the legal system
Like,
to
you're-
justify they were being abused. I feel like in most situations, if a woman just goes, "I'm being beat," and then wants to take her kids, the government would be like, "Wait, can we prove you're being beat?" If the dad goes, "I'm not beating you,"
Oh, okay.
I don't think the
okay.
government just goes,
now
"Actually,
women,
you know what?
now women
Back in
that accuse
2016,
their
we
husband
decided that
of
pussy
being
controls
beat,
everything,
if they
so
can't
you can't
prove
just
it
have them."
sufficiently to the government, then they get in some level of trouble. Like, you're just
Wait a minute,
adding more
libertarians do not
layers of
understand how
government
contracts
bullshit.
work. Yes, you have to prove something.
That's not at all. Like, you just threw in a
If
random
a
word to your
contract is
retarded
broken,
fascism.
do you just say it's broken and then it's broken? That's it. That's how it works. Or do you have to prove that the contract was broken in some way?
That there's not enough context to know specifically what type of contract or what
Okay.
you mean by that. right? Like if a contract is broken by
yeah.
what measure? What is in the contract? Like that's silly. No, like the appropriate response, the appropriate way to incentivize healthy relationships and incentivize marriage is not to have the government further involved. It's not to have the government give privileges to married people, which waters down what marriage is. The appropriate answer is to remove the incentives that make it easier for people to get out of marriages, because we're funneling money, especially from young men, deeply. I mean, 74% of our entire budget is welfare plus the national debt. I mean, like, we have an insane amount of taxation that is targeted towards people. No, his point is to add another layer of government bureaucracy.
Divorce.
No,
like obviously, it got to it.
It's an entirely different. It's the exact
opposite.
I heard
the government. He's just gonna magically make it happen. He's gonna get a militia of like 13 good men to come together and fix it.
What the fuck are you talking about? Nobody, like, I could say the exact same thing.
How are you going to do this without prescription?
Wait, so like to FK, so like from what I heard,
your prescription is to have the government come in and force people into counseling.
No,
to get rid of no fault divorce.
Okay, so he was, from what I heard, was in order to de-incentivize divorce, right? You make the claim that, hey, if you and your partner cannot come to like or any form of agreement, if you guys are so selfish that your arguments are going to affect the child, then you lose your child, right? The less you work on your relationship, whatever it may be, right? You do a separation period, you go through some counseling, you come to an agreement, maybe it's co-parenting, whatever it may be. But like, yes, like who else would determine it, right? I know that you don't want the government to do it, but like we are getting legally married, right? We are getting married under the law. So like who else is going to determine it, right? Like I just don't know what.
You're advocating for adding additional entries, barriers to separating, right? And that in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, right? The problem is that when the state takes away your right to divorce, there is a whole host of unintended consequences. Yes, they are. They're putting up barriers that make it more difficult to do that. This is deeply going to affect abused women. This is deeply going to affect abused men, though the category
you don't have a right to marry.
This
you
is
have
deeply
a right
going
to
to affect children. Do you have a right to divorce?
No, you don't have a right to marry or divorce, really. You have a right to maybe meet somebody, and if you want to live in the woods together and fuck, and then maybe have kids, you can do that. But that's not a legal marriage.
You're not signing anything for that. You're not making anything. This is a complete aside from your own argument. This is bullshit. You're advocating for the state, saying that you are not allowed to get divorced unless you follow this specific procedure and go through this whatever level of bureaucracy this is in order for you to be able to separate.
United States of America as an institution, I believe the United States of America should probably try to disincentivize divorce, and not just disincentivize divorce. We can
believe
accept
that
it,
beef tastes good. What the fuck does that have to do with what we're talking about?
As possible. What we're talking about is people
that's not a fucking argument. Like
what? I started this topic. What do you mean?
You didn't.
What are we talking about? What do you think we're talking about?
You came in halfway through this topic.
You're
talking about you started in chat?
An idiot. I was the one who brought up people divorcing and then their kids getting taken away.
Yeah, we were talking about marriage and the institutions of marriage, and we were talking about all like this general topic before. Yes, you brought up your retarded fascist policy, and I'm making fun of it.
Be allowed. If your argument is just there should be no state, that's a fun argument for you, but we have a state.
That's not my fucking argument that I'm giving. I gave you a policy prescription. I gave you the incentive and the sociological position that I'm
talking about.
You're attempting to take what you know is a radical position and marry it to my entire argument because you're too much of a fucking pussy to actually deal with my argument.
Repeat your argument, please.
My argument is this: is that the government incentivizes the divorces that occur, and that getting the government involved in trying to incentivize marriage while simultaneously incentivizing divorce, and then with your policy, another layer of the government getting involved in the divorce process, is layers of unintended consequences that have been damaging to the family unit and to our culture. And that the best way to get rid of these is to give people the freedom to choose what they do in their life, and give them the freedom to be able to make the decisions that best affect their family, as opposed to government bureaucracy and incentive structures that are watering down these institutions and making our culture suffer from anomie and normlessness.
Which just goes back to, you want a state with no government. You could have your same situation in Prime's ideal
Why
world.
is this retarded?
Which goes back
like
to, you can have your same situation in Prime's ideal world.
I'm done engaging
a world
with
where you provide people all their necessities, and guess what? You just allow people to move freely, right? Because now they have a barrier that protects them from failing, and then maybe they find love in their fucking LGBTW plus polycule, and they move on with life. Or
Scott
you can have a world that we live in, which is
you're not engaged in the argument in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Scott did
so
not
it's just
talk
like it's no
about
point.
Getting rid of
I
the
reiterated it for you multiple times.
That's not what he was saying. It's not what he was saying, right? That's his ultimate goal, ultimate political goal, but that's not the prescription he presented to us.
So what do you think his world the argument he's making, what does it lead to? Because it doesn't work without getting rid of the government and not just allowing people to behave as they do.
No, of course it does. Of course it does. You can still have.
Is Scott going to argue we should tax people like you do?
I'm like, no, God, hold on. He's saying get rid of the welfare state. Hold on. He's saying get rid of the welfare state, right? Because that's a drain on men's ability to make an income,
capital accumulation,
right? Yeah, capital accumulation. Yes, to accumulate capital and do what they want with that, right? And instead, and also get rid of the government's involvement in marriage, because that gives other people an avenue to make claims on that accumulation, right? So if you get into a marriage and then you guys divorce, now that person has the ability to claim.
Who decides how the marriage works if we get rid of their involvement?
That's what he was talking about. He was saying get rid of these structures, right? And just let things play out. That's what he said. Not to dismantle the United States government, right? That comes later for him, but not now.
Prime. My issue is, for any of that to work, we get rid of the ideal institution of marriage, right? Or this not ideal, but the system institution of marriage. What's the point of even saying that in this argument? Because we're talking about a situation where that institution exists. How do we deal with the kids in this institution? Do we just get rid of it and then we hope that maybe the kids are going to have better outcomes? Who decides it then? Is it going to be like some private law firms that we put together and they just decide like...
Sorry, I don't know why you like your thing against like quote unquote, because I hate even this term, but like I'll still use it because people know what I'm talking about. Broken families. Broken families are still families, right? They're just families with a slightly different arrangement, right? Whether the father's taking care of the kids as a primary caregiver, or the mother is
a minority of the time. Most of the time, it's a broken family because
there's still people.
Wait,
but they have like different forms of autism, and some of them are like the worst form, and some of them are forms that they can kind of deal with.
Yeah, most of the time, when people are saying like broken families, it's like a kid grows up in a structure where the mom and dad don't get along, whether they're divorced, separated, or however it may be, and there is no co-parenting structure. It's just that like I have a mom, I have a dad.
We can't force people into co-parenting. We can't force people into co-parenting. We can't do that. Right?
I understand, but you saying you hate the term broken family
choices for
that's what I'm arguing against. But you saying that you hate the term broken family because it's not a broken family, it's just a structure. The reason that structure exists, most of the time, people are getting divorced or they're separating, not because like, oh, they both came to some agreement. They're like, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. It's usually some fucking toxic bullshit that leads them to something as big as a divorce. And the family doesn't operate in a family structure anymore. There is no co-parenting.
Also, not just one toxic thing. It's usually a buildup of issues, but they just don't know how to deal with them.
You have a parent that you live with most of the time. Now, I'm not saying there aren't amicable divorces or there aren't co-parenting situations, but most of the time, you have a parent that you live with that kind of gets and that's demonizing the other parent that you don't live with, or sometimes you don't even see the other parent. So it's like, I don't know if that's still like a family.
But the option that we're being presented, I'm sorry, Aiko's been waiting for quite a while, so I need to move on to him. So the option being presented to me. Being presented to me is that instead, right, of that unfortunate situation. You're correct in terms of, like, there's unfortunate situations
Yeah,
where,
but
like, these people hate each other and they don't stop necessarily hating each other after they break up, right? And the one parent, maybe like, for instance, the dad leaves, and the dad still wants to be involved, but the mother specifically keeps him out of it, right? Because she just hates him, not because he's a bad person, like, or a bad father, but just because she hates that individual. Those things happen, right? My prescription does nothing for that, right? But on the other end, saying that, if this sort of situation arises, well, the government will decide is that we will first disallow you to get married in the first place, right? So these two people who desperately hate each other have to stick together, right? Or within a legally binding contract they do not want to be.
Nope.
Keep them there.
I'll answer to that after
and
I
it's not,
together.
not like,
They
also
have
the
to
other
work
option
together.
is that we take those children away, right? And also, because we're all in favor of good things and not bad things, we also have a perfect foster care system. So don't worry about that part too. That'll work itself out, right? It's disastrous. But hold on.
Get to Corey and Aikau.
Yeah.
Move on to Corey, but I want to get to that later because I think you completely misheard what he was saying, and I want to see if we can work it out.
sure.
I want to see if we can reach him out. I'll get to that first.
Okay, Aiko, Corey, Ali, and I do want to hear from YouTube. Hopefully, you've heard enough by now. But Aiko.
Yeah,
you,
this
Ali.
is where,
Michelle,
well,
they understand.
okay, this is what I was originally, I will say what I was originally going to say in just a second, but this is where I usually bring in, like, what we consider traditional families today, like the nuclear family with everything intact or whatever. I'm not sure that that's really ever been like a realistic thing, like historically. Like if you look at Rome, like families, like you'd pass on everything. Yeah, you would adopt somebody, whatever. He goes, but I think that we have institutions already that can handle a lot of this stuff. And we insert government sometimes in ways that sort of gnaw away at that, like, sort of traditional freedom of association that we'd normally think about. And the first example I have of that is anti-Sharia laws, which, by the way, are also anti-Catholic canon court laws, because the way they're written, they don't actually target Islam, because that would be unconstitutional. So they just have to say things like foreign laws don't apply in America or something like that. So now, if you go to a Catholic canon court, those kind of laws get in the way of being able to do private mediation that doesn't have to involve the government, doesn't have to get a judge involved, doesn't have to get the system involved. And so little things like that sort of pile up over time. And I think the institution that can handle marriage, it doesn't have to be any particular church, but these faith traditions have been dealing with marriage for centuries, millennia. Like, we're duplicating their effort at the federal level, I think. And I think we could give all of the benefits associated with marriage and just call it a civil union and attach it to the back of a marriage. And if you want to call it a marriage, you can go to your Sharia court for that, or you can go to your Catholic canon law, or you can go to your Protestant church or whatever, and they'll give you your marriage. But your rights are not dependent on the word marriage. You'll get those civil union rights regardless. And so I don't know. I just think get the government out of the marriage business.
Well, thank you for that, Aiko. And let's go to our friend Corey. Oh, did you get everything out, Aiko? To make sure you got everything out.
No, that's it. That's what I got so far.
So just want to clarify something before I try to make my point. So, FK, in your world of let's say court mandated therapy or counseling, marriage counseling, is that paid for by the couple or the state?
No, that would be paid for by the state. This is a world where, like, the state is ideally trying to, like, deal with these issues for people.
Honey, we need marriage counseling. Let's threaten divorce.
So,
sure.
I knew
we should pay for it. You don't need the divorce. We should just pay for marriage counseling.
I'm pro loophole.
Let me make my point. So Scott
I am too. I think it's funny.
Scott can probably maybe speak to this better than I can, but I would encourage you to, let's say, look into the effectiveness of, let's say, court mandated, let's say rehab or counseling or just like psychological therapy. I would say the evidence is mixed at best in terms of not so great. And I don't know for sure, but I foresee pretty much forced counseling of couples is pretty much all, at the very least, is going to have mixed success. They're pretty much going to turn out to be not all that effective. And so, with that in mind, and if you're gonna have the state pay for it, I would say you're just gonna be wasting state money and time, and just
Wait, that's
let
not
them
fair.
divorce.
No, let him
I think
finish.
I think that was his point.
Are you done,
That was
Corey?
essentially my point. Yes.
Yeah, you could say we're wasting time and money, but then if these people have that bad of a relationship where we are just wasting our time and money with them, why are we trusting them to deal with a kid with one another? If they genuinely can't
not.
find, look, the ideal isn't that they stay together as a marriage. The ideal is that they're able to find some amenable manner to take care of their kid, because I don't give a shit about them. I care about how this kid
Mhm.
comes out in the long run.
But you can can take care of the kid without forcing people to stay together, though.
Yeah,
They have to
that's what he's
stay
saying.
together.
Wait, that's what
They
he's saying.
have
Wait.
to be able to work with each other.
Okay,
the goal of the therapy, the goal of the counseling isn't for them to like stay in a marriage per se, right?
Well,
The,
to be
like
fair, the ideal, Ollie, is that
can.
they could, but if they can't, there's steps past that.
So like the goal is if you have like for let's just say a toxic relationship, non-abusive, right? It's just non-amicable people, they don't get along, right? The goal is that you go to this counseling, and if the agreement that you come to is like, hey, we're gonna get divorced, at least the counseling is there to help facilitate like a normalized relationship between you and the person. And if you and the partner cannot come to like a normalized relationship, right, where it's going to remain toxic, it's going to remain like whatever it may be, and if that's going to affect the kid, he's saying at that point in time, you clearly don't care about your kid enough to like put your differences aside to even work with. I mean, like, yes, or is that incorrect?
No. If anything, you could potentially make the argument of like getting divorced is like beneficial for the kid, depending on the relationship. Like,
Yeah, you can
It could
get
be. He's not
divorced.
disincentive. He's saying we want to disincentivize
like,
divorce.
I
But if you
am
have to get divorced, he's
yeah.
not saying you just lose your kids if you get divorced. That's not the argument.
I know
The
that's not what
argument
he's
is if you have to get divorced and you guys can't be like amicable or normalized together, you can't have a civil relationship. Then yeah, how would you trust them to like
The government bureaucrat says you're not the minimum
the government bureaucrat, it's the therapist, it's the counselor, it's like that's what's happening.
The government bureaucrat,
that's
right?
what happens right now. If I go to court to get divorced, we're gonna have to go to like a government bureaucrat to handle the divorce.
You can like it or not, but CPS shows up to a house.
What do you mean? No, I have to get a wait. If we're legally married, and then my wife wants to get a divorce from me, she's gonna lawyer up. I'm gonna have to lawyer up. We're gonna have to deal with like the bureaucracy or whatever. Like that's how the majority of divorces are dealt with.
The entire argument that we've been making is to get government out of the marriage process completely, right? Yes, as it stands, you're gonna have to lawyer up.
No, that you're not going to. So like, sure, we can try to live in a world where like we get the government out of like.
Ollie, even if we do,
No.
who decides these situations? What do you think the ideal is? Letting the church decide that actually you can't get divorced because we decided that God said you
if
can?
you want the church in
Is
the mosque
ideal
to decide
situation
divorce.
you can get divorced for like a weekend and fuck and then get remarried? Is it ICAL's ideal? Is it the ideal of no government at all? Is it the ideal of we
That's
give
why I
everyone
asked you,
whatever
like,
we need and no
that's why I
marriage at
asked
all?
in the beginning, like what it is. Like either we get rid of what marriage is, or like we have to accept that like we live within this government structure. Yes, some people are gonna water down what marriage is and find loopholes and have like government and card marriages, and then other people but we're gonna have to figure at the end of the day, if you're going to get divorced and you have kids, you're gonna have to go to some type of like court or town square to have a decision made, right? We can't just allow. Why? Because people are abusive. Let's say you're an abusive. Okay, now let's bring in abuse. If you're in an abusive relationship, right, and you don't have a government or a court structure to go to, how do you get out of that abusive relationship? Let's bring in
I'm done with this relationship.
What if we go with ICAL's idea and they have two different religions and one decided I got married under the Catholic state and one was like, actually, I have under Sharia law. Which rules do we go by there?
I don't give a fuck about Catholic law. I don't give a fuck about Sharia law.
Then how do we work on marriage? Who decides marriage?
You're asking the questions. Let me answer the question.
All I suggested was, I know I framed it in a religious context because I was trying to be relevant to something, but the fact is, it's just about free association. If you associate as a Catholic and you want to like have those rules, you can. But any other associations that you can have, so long as they're not abusive, are fair game. And I feel like the government in many cases isn't necessary, especially when it comes to things like the Sharia law, right?
Then ICAL. In the issue we're running into now, it's a situation where you have two partners that want a divorce. They're not amenable with each other. They don't want to work with each other. What is the best outcome for the kid there? Is it that we just let these two people completely like separate without trying to resolve their issues and have this toxic relationship? Or is it that we try to deal with that toxic relationship every step of the way, not to keep them together, but to at least find a way to like benefit this kid in the long run? Because
what I'm saying is there's a cultural context that's different for each family, right? So there are people like that. Like if you try to get married, like in my parish, was Catholic Church, you'll have to go through marriage counseling. It'll be 6 months before, like, they have to agree to marry you. There's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going to qualify for the Pauline exception for divorce, or if you want to get an annulment or something like that, there's a process for that too. Nobody's forced into it, right? Like if you don't want to do that, then you can have the government settle your dispute. I'm just saying there are many off ramps where you can sort of like settle things outside of that, and it helps with court clog issues and lots of other issues.
I don't disagree with you, but I think the issue is to get to that off ramp, you have to have two people that are willing to work with each other.
Prime
This
answer
isn't
the
the
question.
issue.
The original question, real quick, is who's gonna be handling like
you don't
marriages
need anyone
or divorce?
You don't need anyone to handle anything. You can say, "Hey, we've entered in to this
who? Who do you say it to?
To no one. You don't have to. You
don't have to say anything. So there's no
So why
institution
even
of
say
marriage.
anything? When you have a kid, the kid doesn't matter. If the kid like,
Wait. So there's no institution of marriage.
I'm dissolving this relationship. We're done with this relationship. If there is if there's
but I want to move and take
right?
the kid. But I want to move and take the kid to Chicago, and she lives in.
One second, hold on.
Ollie, you just brought up something I was about to be hard about.
You're giving me like a bunch of things, right? So one thing at a time, right? Divorcing. Hey, I dissolve this relationship, right?
Who do you say that to?
Parental rights are different, right? Parental rights are different necessarily from marriage rights, right? So we can talk about like how protections for children. Sure, go ahead, right? And like the idea of like parental kidnapping. That's the thing that does happen, right? We know that's the thing that happens. But that is a separate conversation from like strictly the conversation of, hey, I'm done with this relationship. I don't want to be with this other person anymore, right? One person doesn't want to be in there, so they leave. Okay, you guys are focused. Sorry, go ahead.
For single dual income, two people with no kids, I think divorce is relatively simple, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I've never been divorced with no kids, but I feel like with no kids, divorce is relatively simple.
It could either be 50-50 or nothing, and you move on with your life.
Yeah, most what we're talking about specifically here, I think, is like a family structure, which is like with kids. So like, I'm not concerned with anything that doesn't involve like children in the conversation.
And that's my issue, Prime. I think it's hard to deal. Prime. I think it's hard to deal with a family structure when it comes to marriage versus like just. Because I think it's easy to be like marriage can just be used
there's no institution of marriage. We can sit here and accept that there's no institution of marriage. But like once again, if there is a family structure,
no, I didn't say there's
no government
recognized.
There isn't a government like
please stop sneaking that in there. I said specifically, yes, people can have the marriage if that's what people want.
But without the government, without the government or a contract, without the government or a contract of people observing it, it's not a marriage.
Ollie, one second. I agree with you, Prime, that you said that.
Third-party observer.
No,
I'm saying,
I agree with you that
stop it. Okay, hold on. We can have a third-party observer, right? Stop. Yeah. I said that.
That doesn't mean anything.
I said it multiple.
The issue is
hold on, FK. Hold on, FK. We're gonna deal with you, FK. Don't worry, we're gonna come back to your nonsense. Right? It's a lot of stupid shit. Don't worry, we will not forget your stupid shit. We're gonna deal with it. I'm guaranteed. So back to Ali, right? Just deal with that. I'm not saying you can have a third party that has a paperwork, right? A registrar, right? That says, hey, these people are married, right? Or officially have a marriage. Whatever. We can decide exactly how much of involvement any institution is with this, right? Whether it be a third party or just like reducing the government's involvement in this. We can decide on that, right? So I'm reducing that. But specifically the thing I was you asked me about was divorce, how you dissolve this, right? And you dissolve by one person saying, hey, I'm done with it. right?
That's
Even
fine.
if you go to a judge, right, and you say, okay, well, you need someone to be involved. If there's a third party involved, they need to acknowledge the end of the contract. Okay, right. Well, then
That
you go
third
to
party-
they go to that third party, whichever we decide what that is, right? Whether it be a secular thing, right? Organization, right?
Can you
Or a
decide what it
Catholic
is right now?
organization or whatever.
Just like-
Sorry, what?
Fine, we need an agreed
Can you
upon
decide
for the
what it is?
government.
Because we
Oh,
we
okay,
just
I'll
we
do it
do
right now.
wait,
Secular. Because I don't give a fuck about the
Okay,
any of
secular.
those-
As in everyone goes to the same third party registrar to handle marriage.
It's almost like
maybe
you
not. It
recreated
might
the
not be.
government like
It
every
might not be.
ANCAP does.
You would have
That's
to.
not-
You would have to, because we can't have multiple different third parties who have different interpretations of what marriage, divorce, and their interpretations of laws. Because when you have kids, right, we do have to have some. Because once again, we're going to bring up my point. I have a kid. We're divorced. I want to move to Chicago. She wants to stay in California. I go to my chosen third party registrar. They're perfectly okay with me taking the kid. But like that, like
we have 50
you know what I
different.
mean? We have to have
No,
some
we
type
have-
of agreed
we have
upon
50
law
different-
for these types of
We
things.
have 50 different organizations that handle that now, right? The state marriage is up to the states, the state institution, rather than a federal institution.
Yeah, and you go to court.
If my understanding
to
is
court
correct,
and you deal
hopefully
with these things.
hopefully
You don't
it
go to
is.
a
I
random-
actually,
it's
to
a
be
state.
honest with you, I disagree with that. It should be some federally agreed upon system where we have these 50 states come to an
Probably
agreement of
partially,
like, listen,
yeah.
at the end of the day, our goal isn't for how these people deal with each other. For the dealing with each other thing, I think all it comes down to is if you can prove that you had to like give up a certain portion of your life, 50-50. If you can, otherwise, if you were working and they were working, when you separate, if you don't have kids, you can go your separate ways and move on with your day like nothing happened. But when it comes to kids, our goal every time should be, what is the effect on these kids? How do we try to make this effect as good as possible, right? Ollie, earlier you said something and I was almost going to go harsh on you because there's a part of me, like deep inside, I don't know if you can really regulate this though through law. I think if you marry someone and you separate, part of me thinks you should be forced to stay in the same area unless you can prove you have the ability to like go back and forth like very easily.
By gunpoint, sure, why not? Let's
Don't have a kid. You're not having a. Did you fuck by gunpoint?
Yeah, by
No.
gunpoint.
So fuck you.
The government should not. Why don't we put ankle trackers on them, right? Because what if they tried to
Okay,
make
but
a
fine,
runner
if
for
that's
it,
the
right?
case, do you hold any moral? Do you hold any
And what if
accountability
what
for
if they
people that
actually-
go around
should
and
we
they
send-
fuck and they
should we
leave
send
kids in
bounty
random
hunters?
countries?
Should we say state troopers to arrest them? Right. This husband has left. Right. Should we send
Fine.
state troopers
I
from
think-
Maryland
I think if
to
there's-
Florida
I
to
think
go
if
pick
there's-
him up and drag him back to?
You want to know the truth?
Well, can you provide
I
a
think
different
if you-
solution,
I
Prime?
think if you made an agreement to be
that.
like, I do want
That
to
would
Can
be
you
my
provide
suggestion.
anything?
Not that.
Can you
agreement.
provide anything
What
other
the
than the
fuck?
government
If you
has
made
no
an
say and
agreement-
people just do whatever they want and we hope it works for the best?
Hold
Can
on.
you provide anything?
No. Well, sorry, hold on.
Hey, Prime. This is I mostly tuned out because it's just retarded, but like
Aw.
there's just going to be
I'm
one
sorry.
consequence of this.
I'm sorry
which
we
is
aren't
less
smart
people
enough
are
for you,
gonna be-
Fabian.
What
I'm
if
so
we just
sorry.
got
I
way the
apologize.
government?
It's
I'm
just
sorry
gonna
that
be-
this
What
is
if
such
when
a
people
boring
fuck, they
conversation
fuck
for
in
you.
the
I
ass and they don't
apologize.
make babies. Fine.
Well, no, it's just
Fine.
beating a
Fine.
dead
Going
horse
back
with a
to
bad
what I
policy.
asked you a
But
long
I'm
time
sorry
ago,
for
that's
beating a
fine.
dead horse, man.
How many
I'm sorry. I
blowjobs
apologize
does it
for
take
that.
to buy a house?
I'm
What's
sorry. I
the
ruined your
fair
night.
market value on that?
I'm sorry that I acted like
Prime,
you
what's the
for
fair
one
market value on a
stream where you're just
blowjob in
eating
the
the whole
ANCAP
stream.
market?
You
I don't know
slow
the whole
fucking
thing.
eater.
If there's a conversation that I feel like I have input on, and I'm not just going to talk for the sake of talking, I don't go in and join. And by the way, when I'm not talking, I don't go on and go, this was retarded, right? I'm so much smarter and intellectual than everyone. I don't do that, right? I join in and I have some input. But you want to come in and call it retarded, so have
How
fun.
did just
I'm
sound
gonna be an
retarded.
asshole when you call it retarded.
Stripping his own
This
parts, but
is-
he's
this
a
is
right winger
really-
in his cabin, stripping his own asshole.
Okay, so this is literally just going to have one consequence if it comes to fruition, which is just every one of these policies is just going to disincentivize marriage. Like every time you try and disincentivize divorce, you're just going to increase the barriers to marriage itself.
People should
This is
think
what I'm
hard
talking about with
getting married.
like the more
That's the point.
there is already a large group of men,
Should we have
especially young
an
men.
incentivized barrier to CP? Do you think like ANCAP society allows for that, or do you think that's acceptable?
What? CP?
This has nothing to do with the conversation, but child porn is
I mean, just what's the
inherently
barrier
abusive
you want the government
in
to put up and
violation
what's
of the
not? Where do the
non-aggression
rules
principle.
start and stop for you?
Okay, sorry.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what you invited onto your panel. Like it's not worth anything really.
Let's go to our friend Doobie. Doobie, hopefully
Sure.
you've been listening.
I'm so kind of torn. So I think there are good arguments for the government disincentivizing divorce, right? I don't know if I'd go as far as FK, but I think I would be okay with some kind of like barrier right? I don't know really what the barrier would be, even if it's like some kind of like a required waiting period, right? You make an intention to get divorced known to the government, and then they require a specific like waiting period. And in that time, they encourage you to get counseling or whatever the fuck. And then at the end of that waiting period, if you still want to get divorced, you can get divorced, right? Maybe something as simple as that, right? And I'm not talking about like a year-long waiting period, like maybe just like a month or a couple months or something, right? That might be okay, I think, because I think that would like and I'd be okay with the government funding the counseling, right? And paying for people to go to marriage counseling to see if there's some way to work it out, especially if there are children involved. So I think that might make sense. But yeah, obviously I can understand the counterpoint, which people should be able to get in and out of relationships as much as they fucking want, right? Like, why should the government be able to put up barriers around
We
your?
have those. It's called boyfriends. It's called relationships. A marriage is
Yeah,
a specific
exactly.
agreement. It's a contractual agreement that you're getting into. Like, it is a specific choice.
Yeah.
I almost think you
Yeah.
shouldn't get married unless you have
So
a
I'm
kid.
torn, but I'm leaning toward the government should probably disincentivize divorce in some way.
Yeah. So let me just
Like,
try
Prime,
to-
do you think a marriage is like any different than just a regular relationship where you just break up and walk out from? Like, is there a difference or no?
No, you can, within a marriage. So, like, thinking of our friend, our dearly departed friend Lactoid. He's just not here today. But if you're not, if
Why'd you
God
say
knows.
it like that?
Parted from not here, he's
if
dead.
If
Dead
you're
to me.
not on the panel, you're dead to me.
You're departed.
No.
He'll be alive next week.
Yeah, he'll be alive next. He'll resuscitate.
Saying, why reinvent the wheel when we have all these off ramps, or we had? Well, I guess we still have to some degree, but they keep getting weakened. We have all these ways of like being able to settle these things outside of an engagement with the government. But I guess at the end of the line, if you've exhausted all of those, then you can use the government. But why don't we make that the the solution of last resort instead of the first one? Why can't we allow these things to be settled, like, within whatever community that they arose from, right? Which,
You can. I don't
Wait,
disagree
can
with
you
you,
let Prime answer my question real quick? Because I just want to know what he thinks the difference between a marriage and just like a relationship is.
For sure.
Before we do that, can I just tell Icro from the base point? You can make that argument. I'm fine. Wait, I'm sorry, because Ali, he just asked the question and I want to like level it out. You can do that. If you want to separate on your own and deal with that your own way, you can do that. I just think if it's not amenable, then you run into that issue. But Prime, go. Why?
Yeah, what's the difference? Like, is there any difference really? Like,
so yes. Okay. Well, for like the fourth time. So I think there is a difference. I think and the reason I brought up our friend Lactoid is the way he has like framed marriage. We've had similar conversations in the past, well, and around the same era in which way. He's talked about how like a marriage, like the marriage contract, should actually be specific as possible. He's on the more extreme end of this, right? But like I think his point makes sense. Is that like you should actually lay out all the responsibilities and expectations within this marriage. Right? Like, here's what I expect of you, right? This is what you will be delivering. If you don't deliver these things, or if I don't deliver these things, right, then we have broken the marriage contract. Maybe we can have some. Maybe you can even decide within that contract whether there's like some sort of remediation process there. Right? We can decide that in and of itself, right? Like individually, you could do that, right? Like how you buy products and like you're like, if there's a dispute, we have to go into arbitration or some shit like that, right? You can have that clause within your marriage contract, but you two can figure out whatever that is. So in any case, right? Within that the context of a marriage, you can have this very specific contract where you have expectations that simply don't exist in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, right? And there could be consequences. You could even say that, hey, if you don't do this, right, if you're in violation of the contract, this might be like the results, right? Like
there's a consequence,
there might be a penalty or whatever, right? You could do all of that, right? But that contract could be between those two people and maybe like whatever registrar they're using to officiate that, right?
But doesn't the registrar have to be like unless
That's
Like
their
unless the
executive
government is
power.
behind it, what's the weight of the registrar? Like what difference does it make? Like if there's no consequence to it, right? If you can just go to this registrar and go, hey, so I know we had this like lengthy contract of like this, but actually I just don't feel like being in this marriage anymore, and then it just gets dissolved. What separates that from just a boyfriend girlfriend relationship?
I'm
you can
sorry,
have-
Prime. I love
well,
you.
can
I
have-
love you.
oh my God!
No,
you don't
that's what I'm
If you
saying.
love
I
me,
love you
then
to
let
the
me
deepest
talk.
part of
Then
my
let me
heart.
then let me finish my thought here, right?
Who's the government bureaucrat who
within
decides
contract-
this, Prime?
Oh my God, I didn't even hear what you said, and I'm not going to deal with it until after I deal with what Ali asked me. So Ali, right? People enter into contracts already. Like Scott and I could enter into a business contract, right? It's between Scott and I. We wrote down the contract, and then if we need to enforce that contract later on, right? Like enforce the consequences of that contract, then we could go to the government because one person
state,
is not
right?
going to do that, right? That's
Yeah.
but that's different from necessarily saying the government has will automatically impose consequences, right? Because it has decided that you haven't reached a certain level of happiness or domesticity, harmoniousness, right? Like that's different. Did I decide on that? Was that within my marriage contract, or is that a separate law, right? That's now putting pressure on this marriage contract and saying that like to dissolve it.
Well,
now
is it
has
the
slight
same period that a
distinction.
prenup? Wait. Isn't the same period that a prenup?
So slight difference here.
Like you can do that.
The principal issue here is that you and I haven't actually written a contract freely. What has occurred is that the state has stepped out of the domain of being the enforcer of a contract and instead has been the drafter of the contract. They have changed what the contract is that you and I are allowed to have, right? So it's what people are advocating for when they say this is how you must separate this contract or this is what the contract entails is that they're arguing that you and I would like to freely engage in a contract, my services for your labor or vice versa, or trade for something, right? And then the state comes in and says that contract is illegal. Actually, we have decided what your contract you're allowed to have.
That's not true.
These are the rules of your contract.
Wait,
there's a lot of cases where the state has done that. You know what those cases are? When a woman has kids with a man and the man is abusive and she goes, I'm still going to let the kids hang out with him because I love him that much. And the man fucking rapes the kids or beats the shit out of them, right? Those are issues where you could be like, actually, I think we should just allow the people to decide their own contracts. But sometimes in reality, the state has to step in. So the issue for you, Prime, is when you're saying like, go to that civil court, at the end of the day, you're running into
advocating
that issue you
ever?
have. At the end,
can you name a single person advocating for that? Like, for that?
I'm not saying you're advocating for it, but in this ideal where it's like, oh, just let people make their own contracts and they decide what's right and what's wrong, the state is eventually going to have to step in to be like, what is the best situation for this kid? You can't just let parents decide that fully on their own. You can let them at the start. If it is the case, kind of like iCal pointed out, where you have two people who decided to enter this government or this religious marriage or whatever type of marriage they want, just a civil union, right? And they made these agreements beforehand. That's the ideal situation that me and Ollie were talking about, where people can be amenable and deal with the situation because they've already dealt with that situation, right? They've answered their question of how do I deal with the separation? The question for you, Prime, and the issue is when you have a separation that both parties can't agree upon, who gets involved? How do you deal with it? And who is the person you're trying to benefit at the end of that?
Wait, so I want to respond to Scott real quick as well, because so like I don't see it that way because you can get prenups. I don't know if there's any state where like prenups aren't like allowed, so you can actually like construct your own contract personally and just have that be accepted by the state.
A lot of states reject like there's a whole bunch.
I don't know, to be fair. I just understand.
Right, so like you can write a prenup, for example, right, and then like so you'll notice. Oh God, I can't remember what state it is, but there's like one state that like a lot of athletes all get married in. Because it's like the only state that like will actually protect them, because prenups get thrown out all the time. I mean,
then that's
like there's prenups for like how long they are. So in some states, like after 5 years or 10 years, a prenup's not valid. There are like a bunch of exceptions and regulations of what you can and can't do in a prenup. And then there are states where like you are correct, right? Where a prenup can kind of anything goes. Like I think John Cena had like a famous prenup because like he had like what his wife was allowed to do in each room, like
Mhm.
as part of his.
So
it
then,
was like
so
an
then I would say,
insane
then I would
contract,
Eli
right?
Manning did too.
then I would probably agree with FK that like marriage, if we're gonna have like an institution of marriage, there should be probably federal, like one law across the states for it, and that's something like a prenup like should apply to all, right? It shouldn't be like a wavering thing because to your point, Fabian, you're right. There are two people who want to have a contract, right? They built the contract, and the state should not interfere on their individual contract. But the difference is
As
when
long
you're
as they're
getting
not
into a
aggressing
marriage.
upon
so-
anybody, yeah.
When you're getting into a
It's not my
marriage, I think the
beautiful mind,
difference is you're like essentially you are joining a club, and there's a specific term of like members we call the married, right? This is the marriage club, and you're joining this club. This club has these rules, right? And to receive all these benefits, you have to play by these rules, and that's
So,
kind of what it is.
Yeah.
No,
And the
fuck.
more
Fuck
rules
that.
on the club, the
Yeah.
less
The
people
less
will
people,
join the club.
the less people will get married, which means
Yeah.
the less people will get divorced, right? You have to think. You should think long and hard about who you're going to marry and if you're going to get married.
We want
Yeah,
people
so
getting married
would
that
you-
shouldn't be getting married.
But hold on. Well,
Divorce
okay,
rates are a problem in this country.
Yeah.
I know. We'll just stop the marriages.
I mean, should
That'll
we just
fix
have
the
people get
family
married
issues?
willy-nilly and have
It's like-
divorces
it's
skyrocket?
crazy.
What's that's not good either.
So
If we're that
look,
bad at
fun,
I might-
man.
Because marriage
So I
doesn't
think-
mean anything if you
I
just
think
can
hold
get
on.
divorced.
So hold on. I think so Scott and I we're going to have difference of opinion here. I think that there should be like terms of a contract that are illegal. That like I mean, he's going to agree with this one example because of the non-aggression principle. But like, let's say like within our terms of our contract, we say like, oh, our children are officially our slaves, right? The children we produce are our slaves. Now, Scott wouldn't agree to that, of course, obviously, right? But I'm saying that there could be other terms that people might put in that might be like unfair or something, right? I think that could be the case. Or like you can't enter into a contract that you aren't like fully cognizant of. Right, like if like one person like puts like a clause in the contract, the other person doesn't.
Yeah,
fully understand it.
English
Yeah.
common law usually has a couple of exceptions. So so one is illegality, one is duress, and then the one that you're talking about, like that's just unfair, is known as unconscionability.
Yeah,
Right. So like unconscionability started from like a Supreme Court case on like I think it was like a Latina immigrant. I could be wrong, where she did like a payday loan, and basically you had to be a contract lawyer to actually understand the stipulations of the loan, and they made it seem like the interest rate on the loan was one way, but it was like they buried deep that it was daily interest as opposed to like monthly interest, and they sold it one way. So like there are reasons in which fraud or undue influence or pressure are put into contracts that we kind of all agree to in English common law, even if they're not per se banned by libertarianism. But like that's kind of not what we're talking about when we're talking about marriage licenses and shit.
So to be clear, and I have two super chats from PDX. These were a little while ago. I'm sorry, PDX. I hope you're still here. I'm going to read them in a second. Just one moment, please. I was checking it before. Whatever, it's fine. But 1 second, PDX. So anyway, yeah. So okay. So we have agreements on unconscionability. So that part is fine. What I'm advocating for is distinctly different. And then saying that the government can decide on extra terms of the contract. And say that if we feel that if your relationship at the time of divorce, right, or applying for divorce in which way, at the time for applying to divorce, if we think that's too acrimonious, right, between these two people, we will assume that this is a bad situation for children, right? And then the threat is there that we might remove that children without the direct evidence of like clear abuse to those kids, right? It's crazy to say that, well, like, yeah, you guys haven't gotten along, right? Like the government hired counselor says you guys aren't getting along in this stressful moment of dissolving your marriage. And so because of that, we might take away your children. That's fucking insane. What that will lead to is individuals in horrible marriages and actual abusive relationships not even bothering, because then they can use that as a friend. All the husband has to do is continue to be an asshole to her in public, right? And maybe like in front of the government counselor, and then he can use it as a threat to get those kids taken away, right? Like, if you try to solve this marriage, I'm going to be an asshole in front of the counselor, and then they're going to take away your kids. Like, abusive partners use children as like a weapon, right?
Yeah,
as a threat,
like
all the goddamn time. This is
every
crazy.
year.
Isn't this
Every
something that
year,
already
my
happens,
mother and
though?
I go out. Like every year, my mother and I go out, like around Christmas time to try and give like socks to the homeless. And it's always funny every year because no matter how many times I try and tell my mother, she still buys 50% like socks for like men sizes and like 50% for women. And then she's like, I can't find all the homeless women. And it's like, because they're overwhelmingly men, mom. Like, and the women are in shelters and stuff, right? And so what ends up happening is we give out all these socks, and then we end up having to like we have this like surplus of like socks in women's sizes. And every year we have to like look up services for like abused women in shelters. And then we go, and then we have to find like a secret fucking entrance, right? Because like it's not like visible from the street. And then I have to stay in the car because all men are banned on the premises because because all of these women have been in abusive relationships. And the first thing they do is get a go bag, get them the ability to escape, get them somewhere where the husband has no idea where they are, and put them in a place where they're protected, where no men are, so that like they don't crash the fuck out, have all of these problems, etc. And like the idea that you're going to add additional layers
these super chats. And they're to Scott, but then we're gonna go to Doobie. Then we can go to raise your hand if you want to go after Doobie. Let's go. No one? Okay. All right. So we'll go to Doobie after we get these super chats out of the way. $5 super chat from PDX Pleb says, Scott, do companies provide that better medium for relationships in your opinion versus the state? I have a bridge to sell you. Both are problematic. And then a second.
I don't think I've ever advocated for companies to handle marriage. I mean, like if you're talking about the like, I mean, if you're talking about like prenuptial agreements, like in insurance companies, yeah, then, yeah, no, like I think if a woman wants to insure, usually a woman, though obviously it could be the other way around, but if a spouse or a potential spouse wants to ensure that they're protected, right? Like, because maybe they're going to be a stay-at-home parent or something like that, and they want some financial security, I think that's another reason for a prenup. And yeah, I think insurance companies and arbitration would obviously handle that better than the state. Because you'd have more freedom to detail what it is that you want in those situations, and your rights would be better protected. So yes, and if you have a bridge to nowhere to sell me, I hope nowhere is a wonderful utopian town.
Okay. Still having trouble with my stream. PDX Pleb also said, and I did ask because we are bordering the topic of parental rights and your rights. Thank you, Prime, for bringing up the legal kidnapping of kids. $5 from that. Fuck. Sorry. I hope guys, if you're on YouTube, let me know, or in Twitch, let me know if we're back. So YouTube, put in the chat to make sure we're back. Because holy shit, guys, not having a good time here. Anyway,
yeah, there's a paper by Ian Hersman on the a rational theory on the rights of children that I think is a great read for anybody. If they actually want to understand like a philosophically grounded position on like what rights children ought or do have, as opposed to just kind of vibing it out. Yeah, I mean, we are close to that territory, and I think it's an important conversation to discuss guardianship and things like that. I think the state's use of child protective services and the state's confusion on what parental rights do and don't exist has led to a lot of abuse and a lot of harm on children. And if we had a rational theory, we would see a lot less of that.
Hey guys, in YouTube land, type in chat because it won't. I'm having so much trouble. Won't let me type in my own YouTube chat. Let me know if you can see the stream on. Yeah, it literally won't send the message, so that's
It
fine.
seems fine on my end. I checked it, but
Okay, thank you, thank you. I do appreciate you. All right, so we're gonna go to Duba. He wanted to say something.
Yeah. So I was gonna say that isn't it true that the government already takes children out of households if they determine that the parents aren't getting along well enough? So I'm not talking about like abuse of the children. I'm talking like that. There's like intense, frequent fights between the parents, like arguments, right? Not physical fights, but arguments between the parents. The government might
We lost
household.
you for a second.
Yeah, we lost
Okay,
you for a
better.
second.
Hello?
You said the government
Yeah.
might, and then
Yeah, it's not a
By
stable
determining
household.
it's like a unstable, mentally unsafe, psychologically damaging household to be in. So they might take the kids out. I think that already happens, and I think that's reasonable, right? Like, so why would it be any different if they're getting divorced at the time?
I don't know if I want that to happen.
But,
That
like,
sorry.
what's your alternative though? Like, it's like the alternative is we don't have the government step in, but we need someone to handle these things because there is abuse that's happening in the home. There is neglect. There are these situations like you are in this like contract. So like, is the alternative to just not have we can't have the government involved at all? Like, we have to have some government involvement because we've already included them. We're not going to go to a place where we're not going to have them included. We're not going to come up with a random third party. That's like the issue, right? Is that like
Yeah,
you may not
so
like it, but like who else is going to
the more I
handle
think
that?
about this, the more I don't like it. Right? I don't like.
Yeah, but who else
Yeah,
is
I mean,
going to
I'm not.
handle it?
I'm not
Because-
putting for. Listen, I haven't put a
Hold-
for. People
hold
keep
on, but
like
before
going
you-
to like this ANCAP position. Like, and I'm. Look, I'm happy to argue that, but I know that's not what this panel is about, right? I'm simply arguing that we have a more rational perspective on where rights come from and how rights are housed in terms of children.
So hold on. Like you, Doobie. I believe you are correct that CPS can do that, right? And for a moment there, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that might be a good point. We do allow for that, but that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. And why? Because of I know because of how it's actually applied, right? The people more likely to be taken, the kids more likely to be taken out of their homes are Black kids. Black kids are far more likely to be taken out of their home than the people of other races. Is it that Black
The
parents are
system is
worse?
racist. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it that Black
I mean, is it
parents
just
are,
abuse rates higher? I mean, is it like are there
primary-
any studies that have controlled for abuse rates? Because
mm-hmm.
black children are abused more often than other races.
What do you count as
Yeah,
abuse?
it could be like I think most fights. My understanding is that most like fights between partners are the result of like financial issues, right? And if you're dealing with like poor neighborhoods, poor households, and Black people are more likely to be poor.
And then
This could come up as a problem
instead
more
of that, like hey, let's help resolve those financial issues, right? Like, hey, let's invest in
Prime.
these neighborhoods.
Prime,
Let's,
I agree with you. That's why I said early on into this discussion, we're working on your world where it's like we've dealt with the financial. Like, even if you break up, you're gonna have like this barrier of like if you're a kid, you're not gonna go hungry, you're not gonna go home. You're gonna have some needs met. It's why we're also not acknowledging like the childcare system in the United States is very poor because this is working under a world of like we want to deal with these systems. It's not like we're saying we don't want to, but when we're working on the argument of like divorce when it comes to like children in a household, if we deal with these systems, how do we acknowledge that? Like, how do we deal with that without having some barriers there where it's like, listen, your needs are met, but you still have to focus on this kid at a maximum.
No, sorry. I'm not trying to take this from my utopian world. I'm specifically going at this from, hey, I want to like get rid of these distortions in this marketplace. It's not so. It would be better as well if I could like take care of all the material needs of everyone around them, right? But I'm saying, I'm decoupling these things any which way. I'm decoupling them, and yeah. So I'll leave that there. So, but so separately, like talking about the welfare of children, right? How it actually works is that Black kids are disproportionately said to be abused, right? That these government worker can come in and say like, this is some sort of level of abuse that like is unreconcilable in any other way by taking the child out. Where they could provide counseling, they could do all these other things. There's other sorts of remediations, but they'll say they're more likely to say that looking into a situation, a black kid has to go. And we've had someone, right? Now it's not exclusively this happens to black people, but it disproportionately happens to them. But we had someone on this panel who talked about how her kids were taken away. She was white in that situation. She was white, and she happened to be a bit more resourced, and so she fought to get her kids back in a way that most parents in those situations can't. They have to give up on their kids because they're taken away, right? It was on bullshit. Literally, a situation. There was a situation where a one parent had already been removed from the household. And like the mother was providing a stable home, but the state decided that it wasn't stable, right? They're a government worker who didn't file the proper paperwork because they literally never even took notes, right? They just said, hey, this individual is abusive. And then a judge who has a history of abusing power, it's like it was a little a nightmare for all the things conservatives say that governments do, right? A judge with a known history of abusing her power on the bench, right? The reason my friend got her kids back is that she was so detailed in her documentation of the process she went through. Binders and binders and binders of documentation that she had and collated and was presenting them to like other legal experts, other judges, and they're like, oh my God, I've never seen like abuse of power this bad. And somehow she clawed her children back, right? Most parents can't do that. Most parents can't do that. Yes, there are some kids who rightly need to be removed from these situations, right? But there are plenty of kids who aren't, right? And so instead of like being having this easy tool of removing children from the home, which has massive deleterious effects that we haven't even talked about here yet, right? Separate from abuse that may happen within the foster children, simply the trauma of being removed from your family can have massive deleterious effects on its own. So rather than doing that, like let's do a whole list of it. No, you do. Stop trying to move the
when it comes to that, I don't. If we want to have third-party organizations that judge judges and then look into their cases and look into how they've ruled, I'm fine with that.
Sorry, FK, we had just sat through like a fucking hour of yelling at you about this, right? You're talking about, hey, within
I disagree with you on the solution as like for the problem.
You didn't even bring.
But if we're talking about all of the solutions we have to put in place beforehand, I don't disagree.
Stop it. No, you do. You disagree. Stop
if we want to talk
the
about everything
goalposts
beforehand,
here.
I don't. No, I
Stop
don't.
moving the goalposts. So you before you talked about, hey, within the context of a divorce, right? When the situation has been laid out, is the acrimony is between the parents, right? You assumed, right, that just the acrimony of itself is enough of a toxic situation that the kids should be removed. Hey, if you can't get your shit together, you said, then we're gonna remove the kids, right? Not talking about like you agree with me. You don't agree with me. I'm saying the exact opposite of what you're saying.
There's this concept that I learned a long time ago from a friend of a friend called the principle of charity. When I'm talking about this situation, I'm talking about it from the perspective of we deal with those issues. If we want to talk about those issues, we can move to a whole separate discussion. And like I said, when it comes to judges, I don't wait. When it comes to judges, I don't disagree with you. Maybe we can make our court system better by having third-party moderators that look into judges, look into what their rulings are, and create a statistic-based like judgment on, listen, these judges seem to be very biased for XYZ. How do we deal with that bias in some way, right? Maybe they have to interview the judges. Maybe they have to do more steps in that process. But that process is like where do you want to break it down? This is like when you argue with conservatives about like, what are you going to do about this situation that's like hurting families? We can talk all day in this conversation about like, yeah, we should provide solutions to all of these issues. But I'm saying when it comes to like this situation on we are dealing with marriage as an institution. How do we deal with marriage as an institution that benefits, hopefully, in the situation of kids, the kids the most? In the situation of two people, me and Ollie both agreed, just let them separate. If they want to separate and they want to go 50-50, and if they want to argue that 50-50, that's on them. But when you have a kid, you're dealing with a bigger issue of like, what is the best situation for this kid? And I'm not saying keep them together while they're fighting. I'm not saying like don't let them work it out. If they can work it out reasonably between each other, that's fine. But me and Ollie are saying there might have to be a threat there if they are not able to work it out in any way possible. And that threat
Then
can
we
come
steal
in
your
a
kids.
multitude of ways. To be clear, the most extreme is taking away their kids and taking care of them, ideally in a different situation. The other version is what we already do, which is we force you into, hey, this is how you're splitting up your kids. This is who's seeing who on what day. This is who's seeing who on another day. And that's it. You don't get a real say in that unless you can like provide more later on. So we already do the force. But now my question is, when you have a situation where they're actively like, which Ollie brought up, when you have two spouses that hate each other and they're insulting each other to the kid and it's creating a negative situation, do we only care about like if one person is on drugs and then we're like, maybe we have to take away the kid from that person? Or do we care about like these people are actively like influencing their kids in a way that's like looking at relationships as this extremely toxic battleground between them?
Sure. You know something else I consider toxic, right? I consider being part of the Second Amendment death cult toxic. I consider putting a gun in your child's hands and saying, right, like, hey,
and then you go to court.
I'm saying that putting a gun in your child's hands and teaching them how to shoot, yeah, that's abusive. That's abusive, right? I think that's another thing that it's abusive. And so I think maybe we should also consider taking that away, right? If you're the type of parent, if I determine you're the type of parent
I genuinely wonder this.
That's part of the Second Amendment death cult, right? I'm not, why am I memeing, right? I talk about the Second Amendment death cult all the time.
Right? I genuinely wonder this. Do you mean just like they have a gun at all? Or do you mean like they're allowing their kids to carry a gun unsupervised, just being dumb with it?
Well, no. It doesn't matter if it's
how do you not even get where this is going?
Like,
Jesus Christ.
I'm saying that the government, right, can decide all kinds of things that are deleterious to children, right? The more power we give them to do that, the more chances that individuals who you and I could agree are actually probably good parents are going to lose their child. So, like, and a good example here is to say that a government bureaucrat has decided this isn't a harmonious breakup. Remember, a divorce is a breakup. A breakup will inherently have like high emotions, right? You're going to be presenting high emotions because this marriage that you thought was going to be forever with the person you loved, right, is breaking up. And in that situation, if you do not present the requisite level of happiness to the government bureaucrat,
you don't have to present
like they have the threat of taking your kids away. That's crazy.
You don't have to present happiness. You have to present, and this is how we do it now, to be fair. You have to present that your intentions are for the best outcome of this child. You don't have to be happy with your spouse.
It doesn't have to be.
You don't have to
it doesn't have to be.
Them.
It doesn't
you have to be like, if my spouse wants to spend
it doesn't
time
have
with
to be
my
the
child,
best outcome for the child. That's
time.
crazy. Hold on. The best outcome for the child would be if the government put $1 billion within a bank account for them, right? That'd be the best outcome.
Okay, let's put $1 billion in and we take them away. Is that better? Is that better now because we gave them the money
whatever.
away?
Whatever. So that's nonsense. We're not looking for the best outcome for the child. We are looking about dissolving this particular marriage. Now, what happens afterwards, right? In terms of like the
child is a part of that marriage. They're not married, but they're a part of that marriage. Once there's a kid involved, it's why we gave up earlier with Ollie. When it's two people individually, you can do whatever. That really doesn't matter as much.
Stop repeating yourself. That nonsense. We already understand that. We're moving on, right? We're talking about just right now. What happens with a child involved? I'm saying with a child involved. No, it doesn't have to be like because the judge decide. Oh, I think it'd be better for the child that you two individuals who hate each other.
Who decides? Who do you put it to decide?
The marriage. No, fuck that. No. No one should be able to decide that you have to stick together. No one should be able to decide. No one should have the power to say this marriage has to stay in place. That's crazy. That's
the
crazy.
Government doesn't need to force it to stick together. They need to be there at every step of the way to see what they can do.
They're not gonna force them to stick together. No, you're correct, right? No, sorry. Let me restate that. They're not gonna force them to stick together. They're gonna say that if you don't stick together and without the required amount of harmoniousness, right? Then we'll take away your kids. They're not gonna force them to stay together.
They don't have to.
They're just gonna say, hey, if you're not nice enough in front of me, we're gonna take away your kids. But yes, sure. Those are two separate things. I'm sorry.
You don't have to take them away if they're not nice.
That's so stupid.
You have to take them away way if they
Sorry.
can't make any agreements into the best outcome for this
We're
kids
gonna have
these
to move
kids
on
at
from
all.
this subject. I'm sorry. Like, we're
That's
not
fine.
making any progress on this. This is stupidest fucking thing. Oh my god.
Oh.
What the fuck? Okay. I got another super chat, $2 super chat. Message me that paper over Discord, Scott, to Void. I believe their name is Void. Scott.
Yeah, let me look it up real quick.
Okay. It wasn't my Discord pinging. Someone asked if it was my Discord pinging. That wasn't me. Someone else here has a Discord.
Wasn't me. I don't get messages.
Yes, same here. I don't get messages either. Okay. Someone with an active social life. All right. So.
Not me.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned that shit off a long time ago. I have like
I
fucking
know
like,
something crazy.
like
From a
20,000
discussion we had like
notifications.
months back.
Go ahead.
iCal, there was a discussion we had. I can't remember if it was here or if it was on a different panel. But it was about Russia banning it was about Ukraine banning the Russian language in Ukraine. That wasn't that was genuinely a slip up. I'm not trying to say Russia should be Ukraine. But on that discussion, I forgot if we discussed it back then. Do you think it would be acceptable if America really felt like Mexico was having undue influence on America to ban the Mexican language or the Spanish language in America?
Okay, so that is a hypothetical. I'm glad you posed it as a hypothetical because I don't think that that's a danger in this country.
I don't think it's the thing now, but I think like if it was felt like, oh, actually Mexico is like really seeming to be like power hungry in South America, and now there's a lot of people speaking Spanish in like North America. How do we do this?
I live in Texas, like Spanish is everywhere. There's just no way to ban it. And also it's the number one most popular foreign language that's taught in the schools. Like it make no sense to ban it. However, I'm not necessarily opposed to like the best system I've seen. I was at a school one time where they did this interesting approach to dual language education. One day they taught everything in English, and the next day they taught exactly everything the same in Spanish. And it was literally half Anglo kids and half Hispanic kids who were basically would buddy up with each other, right? So the Spanish speakers would help the English kids on Spanish Day and vice versa. It was, I mean, test scores went way up. Integration went way up. The number of people who like couldn't speak English and had those problems by the time they entered middle school went way down. Incredibly successful program. You don't need to ban stuff to be able to encourage like language acquisition.
Tell that to Quebec.
Do you think it would?
Quebec
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
I was going to say.
Well, Corey, that's probably a better example. Yeah, tell me about Quebec.
Well, we're not. So Quebec is not banning English, but they are taking steps to like pretty much. Your life is made more difficult if you don't speak French.
You're exiled if you speak English.
We have a language police. We spend money on a language police, as in they go and check the signs of like if the law is, let's say at a restaurant as an example, if you have a menu, okay, and you have an English and French menu, the French text has to be like significantly bigger and more prominent than the English text. If it's not,
that's interesting because when I walked the Camino de Santiago, it was a 500-mile walk through like France and Spain, and when I walked through like Basque country, I got like sick for about 3 days. So I had to like hole up I drank from a bad gourd or something. And anyway, I was holed up in a hotel. So I was just watching like game shows and soap operas and shit like that were mostly in Spanish, which I could kind of understand. But every once in a while, somebody in each of those shows, I'm talking about game shows, it was hosts, like all of the soap operas and stuff like that. One of the characters would stop and say something in Basque instead of Spanish, because it's the Basque way to say that word, and then would turn to the camera and explain it, and then would go back into being their character again. And this was in every show. It was in like news programs. It was in game shows. It was in everything, even their primetime dramas and stuff. They were that like interested in getting people who lived there to speak Basque and not Spanish, not Castellano.
I mean, that seems like in my mind, a more intelligent and way to go about things and more encourage, more carrot rather than
They have a
stick.
very long-term plan for
But
independence. Very long.
Well, yeah. Also, as an example, what Quebec is doing is Quebec essentially it has, I think, at least 3, maybe 4 English universities, and the rest, the vast majority, are French. But Quebec gets a lot of out-of-province students, since Quebec has essentially the cheapest tuition, or one of the cheapest tuitions of all of Canada. And we have McGill. But what Quebec has done is, if you are an out-of-province student and you're going to an English university, your tuition is basically like twice as much, or like pretty much like significantly higher, as opposed to going to a French one. As in, I think you have to pay like a $7,500 premium to go to an English university in Quebec, as opposed to a French one.
I'm not sure.
I think it's kind of based that in certain places in Japan, like in Kyoto, I always thought this was just hilarious, is they have these signs over restaurants in certain places, and in big letters in English it says no vacancy, and in Mandarin in big letters it'll say no vacancy, and then in small print in like one of the different ways of writing Japanese, it'll be like,
Hiragana,
if you can
katakana.
read this, then you can come here.
Yeah.
I think that
I
just
just
proves
saw
we
it.
didn't do enough work after World War II.
If only we had oh my god, dropped more bombs or something. I don't know.
No, we should have
There
dropped
we
those
go.
2 bombs and then sent in 1 million Americans to just inhabit Japan.
So hey guys, if you've been enjoying this this very tumultuous stream, Scott advertised it as a chill stream on Primes. That was his thumbnail.
Well, you didn't invite FK at that point. You know what I mean? Like when I made it, it was gonna be a chill. It was.
I mean, you
chill.
know, I'm a tumultuous person.
If you have been enjoying this, you can too. We haven't gotten much support today, guys.
I've been chill.
You have been chill. You have been chill.
I've been 50-50.
And it's fine if things aren't chill, right? Exciting. But guys, if you have been enjoying this content, please consider supporting the content. We haven't gotten much support today. Thank you for the few super chats that we did get. But consider subbing to the channel, gifting bits, or gifting subs. If you're out there resubbing, we don't have that many of you out there who are supporting, so do consider doing that. We do need your help. So support the channel. If you like all this, and you want to keep this community around, do support. We don't do as much streams as we used to, but that's because we don't really get all that much support. So consider supporting the channel, sub to the channel, gift bits or gift subs, and keep or super chats. We've been reading super chats. So if you want us to respond to something there, for our friends in YouTube land, consider using a super chat, helping out the channel to keep us up and running. But we do need your help, guys. Need your support. So help out the channel if you could. Corey Campbell, thank you for resubbing with your Prime Gaming. That's awfully kind of you. Yes, if we could get more support, we would be much appreciated. Consider supporting the channel. Haven't done so yet. Okay. So we're moving away from the one thing. All right.
The thing you guys were wrong about and I was right about.
What it sounded like the chill stream.
I
agree with that.
Sorry, what?
I've never watched them.
But I agree with that analysis.
The kill stream? Sorry, what'd you say?
No, that you were wrong and we were right.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Moving on.
Thank you, Ali, my Muslim king.
Okay. Things to talk about. Doobie, first of all, before we move away completely, I do want to hear Doobie's thoughts on any of this, because we didn't get much out of you. So just your general thoughts, and then we'll decide what to do from there.
Yeah, so I'm still recovering from COVID, so my brain's a little bit loopy.
Pussy.
But,
that's not real.
Okay. But yeah, I think Prime. I think obviously I wouldn't go as far as FK, but I don't agree with this idea that it's unacceptable for the government to say that a household is unhealthy for children, even if there's like no direct abuse, right? So that example you gave where you said that well, it's more likely to happen. It's more likely that Black families will have their children taken away for that reason. I think it's kind of irrelevant, right? So if there's an issue, if there's an underlying issue, right? with like racism or something within the system that should be addressed. But I think that the principle is fine, and I think it's totally reasonable for the government for some social worker to say, hey, this environment is very unhealthy for the children, so they need to get out of here, even if the children are being molested or punched or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. So if there is so you were saying two things. One, if we could solve racism, then we should get rid of that, right? Okay. We'll get on that. We'll get the racism out of.
I mean, if you adjust for the
foster
racism, is that a good?
care.
Is it an okay principle?
No, it's
If you
it's
adjust
not.
for if the
No,
system,
no,
if the
because
system,
I gave you an example where it wasn't racism as far as I know.
CPS quotas.
Yeah.
Oh God, that'll be successful.
I gave you a situation in which I actually, to be fair, I don't know the race of the CPS.
Yeah, I mean, shit's
worker
gonna
who was in
happen.
the situation, but like, let's assume they were white. I, as far as I know, because I'd heard this told many times before, that there wasn't necessarily any reason to think it was racial animus happening there, right? There was just a CPS worker who decided they didn't like this individual, this parent. They didn't like him.
An abuse of power.
And then, yeah, abuse of power. That's the whole thing. Abuse of power.
I mean,
to give.
We
saying,
agree with
then,
you. Let's get rid of
no,
it.
You
Yeah.
don't agree with me. Stop
Wait,
saying you. Sorry,
wait.
sorry. Hold on. FK, I'm not doing that
We're
thing with
talking,
you anymore. Okay, so I'm done with that. So let's move past that. You don't agree with me. Don't say that you agree with me. We clearly do not. Okay, let's knock that shit off.
So like
Moving
the
on.
issue. Yeah.
You know, it's not simply just abuse of power. It's also putting into place more ways that more hoops you have to separate. Sorry, again, I'm not trying to like, redo this argument. I'm just like
All right, that's
dealing.
fine.
Let me
We'll do it another time.
deal with Doobie. Like, yeah, like you're saying. I don't say that the principle of child removal should be banished. I think the barrier to do so is too low. I think that in this country we have a history of removing children of marginalized communities. Right? We did it with the Native Americans. Right? We had government workers come through Native American residences or whatever they're called, right? And decide, yeah, these kids, they're being abused, right? These parents are no good for them. We're going to send them away. Don't worry, they'll be better off under the tender mercies of the Catholic Church. That turned out really well for them. This country has done child removals constantly throughout that. Like it started even in slavery, right? Like this idea of taking children from their parents, and it's never stopped. So we can say, oh, we just fix that and it'll be all good. No, the entire system is based on stealing children. The entire system, from its roots, are based on stealing children. So no, I don't separate these two things. Oh, hey, Prime, why don't we just solve the racism and then we're good? No, like removing kids should be an extraordinary move. It's not an extraordinary move within our situation. It's not simply a bad apple. There's literally the what we're doing right now is redoing the whole conversation about cops, right? Oh, there's just a few bad apples. Well, of course, we're not for bad cops, right? We're not for abusive cops. We just like the whole cop system, right? The whole cop system should stay in place. The judicial system has to stay in place. But if there's a bad guy in that system, well, then we should just remove that, rather than understanding that the entire system is rotten.
We just need to
right?
bring cops back to their
but that
roots,
doesn't make
which
any
is
sense.
chasing
I don't
black
know. Just
children,
every system is going to have bad
capturing
actors,
them,
regardless of
and
if
then
you
they
strip
can
the
bring them back
institution.
to their parents.
There we go.
It's just like every system's going to have bad actors, regardless of who it is.
Ollie,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
gonna fix this.
every- yeah,
Let's
yeah,
just make
yeah.
everyone
But
good.
what if the system itself is bad? That's what I'm trying to get you to understand.
Well, I know the alternative.
It's the libertarian take there, Prime guys. I
Answer
love
that
it.
real quick.
Another
The issue is if
Systems
that
are
system is bad,
reflections
if
of
that system
people
is
around
bad,
them.
if that system is bad, that's fine. We can make a new system. But the issue is that the bad actors in that system are going to make that system then bad, and we're never going to be able to have a system because there's bad actors.
It's system of reflections. We have to deal with our fucking self before we deal with the reflection in front of us.
Well, it was Doobie.
Yeah, so Prime, I don't think that makes any sense. Right?
Okay.
So mean, Scott brought up the example of the police, right? There's obviously like or like slave catchers or whatnot with some of these with the police.
I'm mostly memeing, but yeah.
Yeah. But there's also the example of like mental asylums, right? Where they absolutely did terrible things to people.
We need more of them.
Hold on, yeah, they did lobotomies on women, right? Because they said that they were like irrational or some shit. I forgot the.
that part
You're
makes
never
sense.
getting away from this
Hysterical.
topic, Brian.
Yeah, hold on,
That part
hysterical.
makes sense, though.
Hysterical was a word, right?
Yeah.
Right. All kinds of terrible shit happened because people either didn't know enough or they were just bigoted or whatever. That doesn't
We all
mean
red,
that
yellow
we shouldn't.
wallpaper.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still have some process through which we can mandatorily put somebody in a mental institution if they need it, if it's safer for them, if it's better for them. That should actually absolutely exist.
Hold on.
We should
I
still
I
have
already
police.
said that. I
We should
said
still
that
have,
though.
hold on, I understand, but we should still have police, right? We should still have a way for the government where in cases where there are where the environment is actually unsafe for the children or psychologically damaging to the children, for the government to reach in and pull the children out of that environment. I understand the concerns with the racism and all this. I get that, but I feel like you want to throw out the baby with the bathwater here.
No, I'm not trying to do that. I said
the bathwater, but I think that being opposed to the entire process makes.
I didn't say I was opposed. I specifically said, hey, there should be a way to remove children from the most awful situations. Right now, exactly how to create that situation so it's more equitable, I can't say I know. Right, I'm not an expert in this field. I don't know the way to create to do that. But I know as it stands, the government has too much power to do so, right? And it exercises that power on a specific cohort mostly, right? But not always, right? And look, Doobie, you remember, you may, well, actually may not remember, I shouldn't say that you do, but you were there, right? You remember Amanda. You remember the story, like, because, well, she told us to us multiple times of what happened to her and her children. Like, it was a horror show. Literally everything conservatives talk about, right? That's what she went through. 100%. That's the thing that she went through. Only reason why she was able to get her kids back was because she was resourced, right? She had the time to do that. She even like lobbied fucking her state legislator, right? She had a law passed, right? Dealing with this, right? She did all these things that those other parents don't. They just have to give up their kids because they can't fight the system. Right, the system comes in and it says these kids are being abused. That's the thing I wanted to push back before, Scott. Right, like you're saying, yes, black kids get abused more, but like, and I don't know. I haven't looked at these studies. Right, I haven't looked at these studies. So hold on, hold on, one second before you go. I haven't looked at these studies, but who is deciding even who's doing the abuse? Is it CPS? If it's CPS, then I don't trust those statistics. I actually don't trust them.
Yeah,
because they are the ones who are saying, yeah, we have to remove the kids. No, fuck that.
Yeah, I mean every study on abuse, especially once you start getting into psychological abuse and things like this, is going to be biased from a cultural perspective, and it's difficult to define, one or the other. Now, I mean, you can limit it and still get not a representation of abuse, but get a representation of like abuse per capita, right? So if you isolate it to extreme, but even then you might just be proving that extreme abuse is more common amongst one demographic, whereas, a different form of abuse might be, et cetera, et cetera. This is why I brought up earlier, much earlier, and that's why I brought up that paper and I put it in the Discord and added void in the general, is because this is the problem, right? That I think everyone runs into, is that when the state has a bureaucracy that is determining based off of arbitrary or potentially biased, means to determine what is or isn't abuse or what is or isn't neglect, then you run into these problems, right? That is why I said before, obviously, yes, I'm an anarchist. I want to get rid of the whole thing. But what I am arguing for here specifically is to have a more rational based perspective on what constitutes abuse. And the TLDR from a libertarian perspective is that you are guardians insofar as you are a parent or, an adoptive parent, et cetera. You are guardians of a child's will, and the child lacks the consent to be able to express their will, right? They do not have the capacity for consent. They don't understand the implications of their actions, etc. And so during that period of time, you as the guardian, your role from a legal perspective, not necessarily moral obligation, but from a legal perspective, is to ensure to the best of your capacity their body, their physical body, and their what their body ought be given a natural development cycle, right? So if you give your child cosmetic surgery, bad. If you give your child cosmetic surgery to fix a medical issue, such as a
All right, can
cleft
someone
palate,
mute their
right?
Discord, please? Like, whoever's getting messages, like, mute your Discord. Go ahead, Scott.
Right. And so it's like, if you're going to get in CPS involved, if we're going to have CPS, if the state is going to be the arbiter of who can or can't have children, we want to make sure that there isn't an overreach, because the moment we start getting into these biased areas, is the moment that those problems, as you're discussing, start popping up. So what a rational perspective where we can absolutely prove that a parent is, abandoning their right to the guardianship of a child, is when they have permanently damaged the body in some capacity, right? Being it a scar, being it some type of sexual abuse that is abused them in some capacity. Obviously, sexual contact of any kind is one of the few domains where we can prove psychological trauma under most circumstances, et cetera, right? Like, that is when CPS should be, taking children away. This idea that CPS should take children away because of like arbitrary metrics of like happiness, or what are enough resources, or what is enough love, etc., it runs into so many problems. I mean, for example, there are traditionally 4 types of categories of parenting. There is authoritative, there is neglect, there is permissive, and then there's like the mixture. Authoritative versus authoritarian, right? And so, for example, authoritarian is pretty predominant in Asian cultures. What do we find with authoritarian parenting is psychologically they're not as healthy, they're not as happy, they're not as fulfilled, but financially they tend to be far more stable. They tend to do better in life in terms of their own financial stability, with that comes, some mental health and some stability that allows them to work on that, right? The opposite is true of permissive parents, right? They tend to have actually fairly mentally healthy children, but they tend to grow up to be losers. They don't get shit done. They don't have the ability to get an apartment without mommy and daddy helping them. Authoritative tends to be in the middle, and then obviously neglectful, we can kind of see as abuse. But we have to be very, very careful about the boundaries of that and make sure that those boundaries are objective. Otherwise, we're just going to be causing more harm than good, especially if we're giving it to a bunch of ladies in government with masters in social work degrees that have all kinds of fucking biases.
If you've ever wanted a view into my fucking schizophrenic mind, I think the issue lies where you view this thing as like, we're trying to give these guys some objective good. I view it as there isn't going to be an objective good. We live in a chaotic world full of like insane systems, all trying to coexist and function with one another and try to find some point of entropy. All of the people that exist right now, right? Like it or not, they try to work in the systems around them. These systems could be our society, could be their governmental like systems that they exist in, local, all the way to like federal, all the way to global, in the way that the global systems work with each other. In this one situation, I don't want to keep holding on this, but it's like the idea of like, we are trying to deal with the situation of like, when we're dealing with divorce and kids, what is the good for the kid, right? Not good in an objective sense, because you're not going to find good in an objective sense. That's why ideally, honestly, you go with what iCow said, which is you allow people that if they can find some solution to their problem in their own way that makes them both feel fulfilled, that's nice. Even then, we sometimes have to step in, because there have been situations, right? There was that really famous case in California where this family had like 15 kids, and like all of these kids were being like starved and chained to their bed. And they were fully convinced, even when you look at their interview, that like, this is what God told me to do. Sometimes we step in as the group around these people and go like, actually, that's probably not how you should raise these kids. And you can feel good or bad about it. But that's why I think our system is the ideal system that allows for those shifts in minor increments, that goes like, you could feel really bad about this and you can go crazy on trying to like correct for it, but eventually you fall back into where we are now. Prime, my issue with you on this argument is I find it, you can have your ideal, but like at the end of the day, what do you trust as like a source to kind of base this off of, on like what is the best outcome for these people? Because if you tell me that, like, I actually don't trust the most like accessible, like informative source that's dealing with these issues in the moment, even if they have biases, then what's the difference between you and like the most insane right winger telling me like, I actually don't trust these race statistics, I think they prove a completely different thing, and then trying to move on to their like ideal goal for society from that point. I don't know if this is changing the subject, but I think we're trying to like everyone's trying to force a goal on society, but they're not just dealing with
You are forcing a goal on
solution in the
society.
moment. For,
like you literally just gave a postmodern rant, and then came around to not disagreeing with my position at all, but just saying that like good and all these things are unknowable, but good is good. Like that was just a completely contradictory.
I think we can all agree that good is the best situation for that child, and the best situation, unless we disagree, is a situation where the parents are not like counteracting one another. And I think as Ali brought up as an example, you don't want a situation
the best situation for that child is to give that child all of Elon Musk's money. That doesn't mean we should give that child all of Elon Musk's money.
It's not about all, but like when you're dealing with these issues, you brought it up earlier.
You don't have a you don't have a basis.
You brought it up earlier,
you don't
Scott.
Have any
I'm not talking about we all agree. If somebody was a rapist in their relationship, you don't allow them to like have their kid and have complete like access to their wife and move from that point forward. But you're advocating a system that would make that more difficult.
World. I'm talking about the real world, and I'm talking about the consequences of your policy prescriptions. Like you were just saying, like, oh, we all agree to that, but then you're not dealing with the fact that
my policy prescriptions run into that problem. My policy prescriptions aren't based on finding an objective good. It's based on like looking at the issues caused with like cause and effect scenarios in front of us, and then seeing like, are there ways we can affect these better?
So you're not addressing the arguments, but you're just vibing out, and you have no principles or definition by the metrics you're going towards.
Vibing out is gobbledygook. Vibing out is nonsense. Feeling like we can make this feel better. Our understanding, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Doobie or Ollie on this. A family where you have like a negative circle between the mother and father, right? It doesn't have to be that they're abusing the kid. It doesn't have to be that they're beating each other. It could be as simple as like they both shit talk each other to a degree where the kid views them as like, oh, when I'm with mom talks bad about dad. When I'm with dad talks bad about mom. I'm not saying you always take away the kid, but I'm saying you put barriers in there that go like, listen, our government should, because we should. Our government is there to do things for us, and we should care about each other, and we should want the best outcomes for the people that are going to be our next generation. And part of that outcome isn't just taking them away, but it's telling their parents like, listen, you guys also should work together, right? It's that fucking JFK.
Instill an obligation through like, I mean, at some point, like fear, because right now it seems to be that there isn't any like alternative, right? It seems to be that people can be shitty parents and kind of just get away with it without like, what I see is neglect, right? I think there's a lot of shitty parents, whether they be divorced or not divorced. I mean, my parents fucking separated 3 times, so divorced 3 times. My mom ran away with me to Lebanon at one point, right? Like there's a lot of shitty. There's more shitty divorces than not, and so like the idea that like we just don't like no one steps in anything is like we're seeing a negative result, but like there should be some type of incentive to like go through counseling, at least be like, once again, just like civil with one another.
Also, to clarify, because I've seen issues earlier, when it's reasonable, you can add that caveat when it's reasonable, but reasonable doesn't just mean you hate each other. Reasonable means there's like things there that are barriers that are unpassable.
Just more undefined wish-wash. Like what is reasonable? Like, no, there is a wild
Do you think the government,
Ali, between you saying moral oughts about what people in divorces and what maybe local churches or communities should do to try and maintain the stability of healthy relationships and families versus when a government steps in and begins regulating people's behavior and what the downstream effects of that are. And I agree with you. I agree with you that people should work on their marriages. I agree with you that if you're that people should probably be in some type of community, be it a church or be it, like some local thing, etc. Right? Like that's one of the main things. One of the main reasons as a conservative, I want the government out of so many things, because I want the spontaneous order that comes from human beings interacting with each other.
We've had that spontaneous order. Is
right.
what is like
Yeah,
I think
our
what we're saying.
We
Is
had
we've
it in the
had
past, and then we've gotten rid of it.
Yeah, and I don't think
by-
it's benefited us. I think it's led to like a bunch, because like if we leave humans, like a bunch of us, to the spontaneous order that we have with no structure, you kind of lead to like
I'm
all
not
these
making
abuses
I'm
that
not
we're
making any
talking about.
argument. I'm not making an argument that there would be no structure. I'm making
No. I'm
argument
saying
that
we've had. We,
I'm making
it
the
feels like
argument. I'm making the argument that centralized authority destroys spontaneous order. What I'm saying is that the state has taken over things that used to be maintained by churches and local communities, etc., and taken that away from them. And now they're kind of like painting everything with a broad brush, and that causes the initial action of taking away that authority, causes problems within culture and society, and isolates us and separates us and makes us less healthy and causes all kinds of problems. But so does the broad brushstrokes, where states where nation states or states within that nation state of federalism are non-specific and non-value based, because when things are democratic, they're not based upon a proper philosophy of rights, and they're not based upon the values of individuals or the values of a community or the values of a church. And so when you pull those values out and you just say it is good, amorphous as it is, to redistribute wealth, then what you get is all of these other bad incentives and all of these other problems. And what I'm saying is that if you're going to have a state be the arbiter of dealing with abuse in children, or dealing with enforcement of contracts and the dissolving of those contracts, the best thing that you can possibly do is involve the state as little as necessary, unless there is some objective proof of harm. Because the moment you start getting into the subjective category of good is the moment that, yeah, it sounds good on paper, but in practice, there are all of these unintended consequences and all of this other chaos. I mean, just average FK admitted everything there's so much chaotic things in this relationship and in rules and in nation states and all these things, but you're injecting that you're attempting to control that chaotic thing with another chaotic entity, and imposing order, and it doesn't work. You don't impose order effectively with another chaotic entity that's not bound by a rational theory.
Oh my god, Prime, I'm sorry, I really know you want to move on. If you want, shut the fuck up right now and we can just move on to the next subject, but I hate this.
I mean, there's not really any other subject that we were at the end.
The idea is you can inject it all you want. The way our government is supposed to work, and the way I feel like it does really work, and we're all disagreeing on a bunch of things right now, and that's why we're not moving towards anything really to fix any of our problems, because we can't find what our problems are. It's like our whole debate with like the baby thing. Do we care about the idea of marriage as a whole? Do we care about where marriage starts, where baby
I don't know about
starts?
the rest of you, but I did.
Do we care about any of that? And like our government is there. It is a representation of us. We're fucking idiots. We can't agree on shit. Right now, we have these pockets of people that we're fully access to that throw us off. Doobie, are you still there? I need to ask you something.
Yeah.
How wild was it when gooning became a thing you saw on the news?
Are you going to deal with any of the arguments? You made it seem like you had this big deal to deal with the arguments, but you haven't said anything.
When gooning became a social thing where it's that's something you knew because you and I hopped in a random server, and now it's out there.
Yeah, pretty fucking weird.
It's right now we're dealing with this world where in the day-to-day situation for that marriage thing, motherfuckers are dealing with the real arguments. People don't day-to-day really deal with I fucking got beat by my husband and now he's fighting for my kids. Those happen, but those usually can be dealt with. And in situations where they can't, Prime, I don't disagree with you. The government's job is to step in and fix those situations. as best as they can in the moment, and then hopefully better from that point forward. But when we're talking about situations like we're talking about now, and this
You
is a lot
have an
talking in
argument
me,
against anything
but,
that I said, because so far all you've done is cope on your own fact that your policy would in fact increase that abuse that you're describing. And then you're just going, but the government will fix it. The fuck are
It's
you on
not-
about? Just make an argument.
Your
that makes
issue is you
sense.
look at the government as always this thing that's going to come in and add a variable that fucks people
I'm not
up.
asking you.
I look at
I'm
the
not going to
government.
ask you to
I look
psychoanalyze
at
what
the
my issue
government
is. Just
because
make
at the end of
one
the day,
fucking
whether
argument.
you voted on them or they got elected because they were part of your fucking company, the government, hopefully, and I believe in our situation, is a representation of the will of the people. If the people really feel like it's not working for them, that's on us to go out there and advocate, right? I feel like in the situation you were talking about, Prime, and that person who got fucked over by the court system,
Dude, I
that
thought
is the will of the
postmodernism
people.
was dead,
Not only
but it's
that,
fucking
but
alive here today.
congratulations, Scott.
Just make an
But
argument.
What you described, Prime, was that person going out of their way to work within the system to try to shift it. It wasn't easy, and I think it should be easier. There should be less barriers there that hold these people back, which goes back to like,
Those are
if we
fucking
wanna
dreams.
argue-
Make one argument, dude. Just one. Retarded policy prescription.
We're talking about like, oh, being in requirements. If you're going to get divorced, you should try to deal with your relationship. Oh, actually, there's all these other issues with having the government involved. That's a problem. There's not one argument. That's
You
my
are
issue.
still
You guys
fucking
want
waffling.
one argument. I can give you one argument, but that's going to deal
Please
with a very
do.
specific situation and a very specific problem. That one argument was my specific problem is I feel like right now people get divorced without having enough barriers there to see if they can at least deal with these situations in a more amenable manner. We can deal with that. But if we want to talk about the grand scheme of arguments, yeah, Prime, that's where it goes to your thing. I don't disagree. We can go down step
Still
by
have
step,
not
but that's
made an
why I
argument.
think like
Holy shit. That's
I
just
kind
a
of
goal.
dislike when people fully like write off our government as like, oh, it's just supposed to be there. It's not just supposed to be there. It's there for
Am
us.
I taking
We
fucking crazy
advocate to
pills?
it, we
What the
change
fuck
it,
is
and we
happening right
alter
now?
it in ways we
Talking to
can.
Prime now, not you. So I
I've
don't know.
yelled at him to make an argument like 15 times, and then he just continues steamrolling with just
And you yell, it's like a
waffling,
Muppet
contradictory
yelling at a fucking
nonsense.
rock.
I mean, look, I agree with Scott here.
Just not
Like-
one fucking
like
argument.
You haven't
Ruby,
like
can you
actually
make the
put
argument
anything.
for
You're like,
for
hey,
FK real
I
quick because it's
wish-
better coming out of your with your cadence.
No. Like
I'm being serious.
What FK has given us is like, hey, I wish, I hope, that'd be great, right?
Oh, I gave you. They advocated for it. They made a change. You said she changed the law to get her like to
What
get
are you
what she wanted.
advocating?
out
I
of
don't know
it.
what law. I'm not even talking about. You're not advocating for anything. You're like, hey, I like that. Like, people can lobby their government. Okay, great. I'm glad you like that. Like, Scott's right. Like, what have you presented? You just keep talking. You just keep saying shit. But like, you haven't actually
That's
presented
always-
anything to work on.
I'm
Hey,
I'm
it would be really
presenting
nice
to you the
if,
system in
things
front
would
of
be
you
easier.
that you can work
Like,
within.
it's crazy.
But, like instead, you guys are just telling me, oh, we can just fix everything. I'm presenting you. You have a system.
I'm
it
not
has
sa-
flaws. You can work
What?
within those flaws and make it better.
What? We've never said that
you
we can
can't.
fix
You
it.
cannot bully. You cannot bully him into being rational. It's just postmodern nonsense and waffling. He has nothing. He's incapable of rational thought.
I feel like people who use words like postmodern read books and sniff their asshole deeply, and I think sometimes they eat their smegma.
Well, you should fucking read more books, I guess.
So you do the other two things.
Okay. All right.
Sure, buddy.
I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. I look, man, that wasn't an argument. It really wasn't an argument.
But you're
I feel like
arguing
I'm listening to a
I don't
Trump
think
speech.
anyone has
Like he's
an
just
argument,
riding the
right?
wave.
Just riding
But that's
the
not
waves.
the problem that was
Corey,
presented
Corey,
in the
does
moment.
anyone have an argument here? Like, really, does anyone have like a solution, or is it all is everyone just vibing
I
out in their own
specifically
way,
gave
shape, or
the
form?
same one.
Corey, who has
which
been
was-
watching patiently this entire time, what do you feel?
You've
Do you
heard
feel like-
mine
who
multiple
has-
times. What is
do
your
you feel like
opinion on
FK
mine?
has an argument?
Do you have an
Ivy,
argument
Prime,
against mine?
Fabian?
I guess I fucking win by
no,
default.
wait, I didn't know your name was Corey. Damn.
Well, you never heard his argument, Ollie. He hasn't ever said it.
I don't know. Listen, I'm retarded. I just vibe out. So like, Corey would like tell me. You've been listening to us for 2 or 3 hours,
Yes, although let's say I've been listening 75%. I have,
which is
been,
all I need really to know like how you feel about our arguments.
well, so like, well, I disagreed with FK's argument initially. That's why I pushed back with the whole therapy aspect. Could I steelman FK's argument? No, but that might be a reflection of my incompetence or ignorance.
It is.
How
Yeah,
about everyone else? Does everyone else have like an argument or like do you feel like, or is it everyone just kind of vibing? And maybe you agree with
I
everyone
gave
else's
mine
vibes?
multiple times. Would you like to deal with mine? or
I
do you
am
care?
not asking to be like an asshole to you specifically or like reiterate. I'm literally asking him to see if like maybe we're all wrong, right? Maybe we're all talking over each other because I kind of think that's what's happening.
Well, I would agree that there's a bunch of
Put a paper
talking,
in chat
talking
and in the
past.
Discord.
But yeah, like I don't.
So
really know what to say.
I wasn't saying that FK never had argument. He had argument previously, and the argument was for putting in a process to take away children if the government thinks that the divorce is too acrimonious. Divorces known for their acrimony. Like he wants to put the
not
threat
just
of-
too acrimonious. Too acrimonious for the child.
For
You have
the
to add
child.
that
Oh,
aspect.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
sure,
wait,
They
wait,
can hate
wait,
each other.
Yeah,
with an attempt of resolve and there being no resolve.
And like
yeah.
you never even put forth. How could you even judge that? For the child. I mean, what does that fucking mean, right? Does
The
that
way
mean
we
that,
say
like,
the
vibe
same
it
way
out,
we
bro.
judge
putting-
if a
good
house
is
is
meaningless.
neglectful to a child.
I mean,
we-
literally
we-
meaningless. Hold on. What are we putting microphones within the house, right? To know that, hey,
No.
like you guys are fighting. We know you're fighting,
you know
right?
what?
So
Be
as someone
honest,
who
maybe
dealt
every
with it,
couple
as
months
someone
we
who's
argue
dealt with it, I can
again,
tell
we
you.
go, hey, how's your relationship?
I can tell you.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. I appreciate it. Shut the fuck up. Are we putting microphones in the fucking homes? To to measure whether the arguments are just happening within the bedroom, quiet enough so the kids don't notice, or in front of the kids, right? Are figuring out how do you through counseling understand? Hey, this is like specifically bad for the children rather than just bad because we're gonna have emotions are going to be high. Divorces are notoriously ugly. The worst part, the most toxic part of the legal system, consensus by all lawyers, is fucking divorce court. Like
Family court, yeah.
Yeah, family court. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. It's not like the sharks, right? Who are doing corporate law,
shit,
right?
crime.
That's not where where it gets.
No
it's
shit. When
family
people go
court
into
where that
court,
happens,
they
right?
fucking hate each other in the
and now
moment.
you're gonna say, well, like in a divorce, in like one of the worst points in a person's life, right? According to people who've gone through fucking divorces, they're saying, well, how how are you presenting to the judge, right? In terms of your emotions and are you keeping that away from the kid? And are like it's I don't know. I don't know what to do at this point, right? To say, because this is like the dumbest argument like I've heard. Period. Like, not sorry. Period.
I mean,
there's been a lot of stupid arguments on this panel before, right? But this is it's hard to engage with it because all you're saying you're putting forth like the most emptiest of prescriptions, most empty of prescriptions.
That, if anything, shows your neglect to humanity as a whole. You don't understand that this is
humanity. I don't want to steal more children. Neglect to humanity as a whole. The dumbest thing
people deal with, Prime.
So
now,
wait,
Ollie, my stand.
So a way you could deal with this, right? You don't have to strip the kids away immediately, right? I think there's something to be said that eventually. But I mean, like, one, I do think that if you're we have to go through government situations. If you're a family going through divorce, I think the kids should be seeing a therapist, right? I think there's the unbiased, hopefully third party that will take the kids' words into consideration. And
before we move on, do we all agree with that? If a family goes through divorce, should they all be like? Should there be some form of therapy there to see how the family is managing those behaviors or those experiences or emotions?
Family counseling, whatever it may be.
Come on. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, you could have a family counseling session. I'm more in favor of mental health tools being given to people.
That's what I would say is that you would mandate you would mandate for like family counseling and therapy sessions, right? If there needs to be like a separation period where one of the residents leaves the house, that's absolutely fine. But they still have to show up for like the mandatory family, like whatever it may be. So I would institute it like 2 or 3 times a week, a couple hours. I don't know. That should be enough family time.
No. I disagree with that. Well, should it be mandatory? Why? No, not mandatory.
Family counseling?
I actually disagree with you, Ollie. It shouldn't be mandatory. If a partner doesn't want to show up, they don't have to show up. They can be like, I give up my kids.
But then, to FK's point, if one member doesn't want to show up, then they lose their right to their kids because they're not trying to.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
You don't
No.
care about
Prime,
No.
prime, prime.
No.
Let me finish my statement before you say it's crazy. So, like, my idea of family counseling is not necessarily to stay together like in marriage, right? You can be divorced, but there needs to be some type of like. I'm sorry, Fabian. I'm sorry. You know, we have a government that
it's just I presented an argument, and you're all back on the same retard shit. So.
I'm retarded.
It's like,
so
and then
anyway.
everybody pretended like it didn't, like I didn't give the argument. We just went back into this like postmodern bullshit.
So, Prime, to my point, I don't believe that you have to mandate marriage, right? You do not have to mandate marriage. People should not be forced to be married to one another. But if you have kids, I do believe you have to be forced into some type of civil living. Like there has to be some type of mandate where like you have to be civil to one another, because if you're not civil to one another, there is no positive outcome for a child. If you have two parents that are divorced, not living together, and not civil to one another, there is no positive outcome.
What happens if they're not civil to one another?
I mean, the person who's choosing to
before we can get to that, before we even get to that, I know we start. That's a good question.
So that was what FK was saying, in the fact that like I would mandate that there's some family counseling. If one party chooses to not participate in the counseling, then they're choosing to be neglectful of the fact that their actions are resulting in negative effects on their children. Therefore, yeah, I would say that. I mean, can you tell me an alternative?
And they lose their children. Yeah.
What happens?
There's
so many problems with this. What happens? What happens? Hold on. What happens when
kids divorce and doesn't go to court? Do they lose their kid?
Ali, I don't know why you subjected us to the same argument with more steps. Like, what was the point of all that, right? Like
there's so many problems here.
Yeah, if you don't do
what happens to the family counselor is bias. What happens when if you get some feminist fucking family counselor?
I mean, some courts are biased, and we can I don't know. People are biased. I don't know if that's. I just don't hear an alternative very much, other than you let people deal with it on their own.
Now, yes, we have the counseling.
Alternative.
We have the, but now you're saying that if you don't come, right, or maybe if what if you don't
subjugate yourself to this struggle session by a counselor, then you lose the rights as a parent. What if the counselor? What if this counselor says
counseling not a positive thing that people should probably do if they're dealing with problems in their lives?
You didn't participate enough. Hey, what if the person? Hold on, Ali. What if the person shows up, right? Like, let's say it's a parent. Let's say it's me, right? I show up to my mandatory, my Ali mandated counsel session, right? And the counselor says, "Hey, you didn't pay enough prime." So
what if someone's an asshole? I mean, what if some cops are assholes and they're racist and they shoot people? We should get rid of police.
Here's the answer. Here's the answer to that. Here's the answer to that, though, right? Is that we take away their power. We say we take more power away. We understand we live in an imperfect world with imperfect systems, right? But we take power away from them, so they have less avenues to abuse, right? Less avenues to create
the way to deal with racist cops is give them more power.
Who do you think is going to be less judgmental?
Obviously.
Who do you think is going to be less judgmental, Prime? Do you think it's going to be the judge who sits there in front of a jury or in front of the group and goes, "Oh, this motherfucker didn't even show up. I don't give a shit"? Or do you think it's going to be the therapist whose job is to deal with family-related situations where families are separating and they're like, "I'm coming at this from a perspective of like, I understand that these families have issues. My goal isn't to fix their issues. My goal is to see if I can get these issues to be as like clear and
finding out the morality of therapists appointed by the state."
You can say all you want.
Anybody to do anything, because every person in power is going to abuse their power.
I'm sorry, Ollie, 1 second.
Like the answer
you can say all you want, like I'm taking away power from the government, but you're not really taking away power from the government. You're just taking away power from like, again, I'm personally a fan of, I'm not a fan of bureaucracy as in it makes things last longer. I'm a fan of bureaucracy as in I think there should be steps in our government that are able to counteract our own government as a whole that are based on scientific research. And ideally, these people who we put into those therapist situations for the government are people who are coming at this from like, listen, I understand how families work. I'm not just looking at this as like, you give this much money, you give this much money. I'm looking at this as like, there's the situation where you both dislike each other, but you have a kid, and how do we balance that?
This is like a repeat. This is a repeat over and over and over.
I mean, it's a repeat because it's like the point kind of gets misconstrued just because you're the taking away kids part. And you forget like all the resolvent steps that it takes before you do that. And why
we have a principal issue, and you want us to continuously ignore the principal issue and then just vibe out what good is.
Ignore the stealing of the children. You guys are really focusing on stealing.
I don't think it's stealing. I don't think it's stealing.
Focus on that part.
Guys, ignore the problems of increased abuse and stealing of children. We're gonna vibe out what's good, but don't worry, we'll get the experts in.
The better solution was my family who just vibed it out. My family who just vibed it out. My mom who had to just like be a random single mom with no friends and family in the country. Like the solution is like the people vibe it out. And when the people vibe it out, the person who has the power in that situation abuses their power, which is 9 times out of 10 the male in the situation. The men are going to, especially in terms of an abuse, if they own the house, kick the wife out. Crazy. Why can't you? What's stopping you? They own the house.
You pay the bills, you pay for the food, you pay for the electricity. Get them
first and foremost, your data is way off on like abuse rates and who's going to use these systems. Second of all, you're advocating for a system that gives abusers more control. That is one of the problems we have with this. I presented a
control.
Is there a third party here?
I gave an argument. I gave an argument hours ago on this and explained how women specifically, though it does obviously happen to men, they have to be called.
God, they still have to go to court no matter what. No matter what, they're going to go to court. At least we can make it some. If they're going to court and they can like, because guess what?
Literally just yell to yell
in some way.
You're
Scott,
just yelling.
What do you want me to say? They're going to go to court no matter what. My system is the way they go to
this
court.
Dumb system.
Guess what?
Or to just deal with the actual arguments as opposed to
because you didn't deal with mine. Because it's like earlier I said, if they've already gone through the process and it was an abusive relationship, no one expects them to go through the other step. If someone's
that's a fucking wish. That's not a policy. That's not a fucking argument saying I have a goal that maybe the government will figure it out.
If you go to court and you have a police record of this person was called for domestic abuse, or you have like a rape kit. Because guess what? I don't know what you want, but I'm not magically in their house seeing like the abuse happen. But at the end of the day, if they want to argue, I was abused in this situation. Even now, you're not just allowed to magically leave and disappear. And if the husband, like if you were abusing your wife and you want your kid back, you can still file for that shit. You can still go and get that. And then it would be on them because it would be harder if they didn't prove that like there was some abuse there to like fight to have their kid like as the majority of the time or the full time, right? At my issue with the system,
the way that the system currently works,
the bad thing happens and we try to deal with it. That's what happens.
No, you can't just have like wishes and pretend that it's a fucking argument. The way
it's
that
not
the
wishes,
system
the
currently
wishes
works,
hoping we can fix it all.
Shush. We've heard enough from you. The way that the system currently works in most states is you are correct. You can't just abscond with a child and then not go to courts. That's not an argument about what we're saying. What I said multiple times, specifically when dealing with the abuse issue, not talking about the children, etc., is that when you have someone that is the victim of abuse, they are isolated from family and friends and contacts, and that they have that one of the hallmarks of that abuse is control over that person's life. And the more things that you add where there are more mandates that require reconciliation, etc., with abusers, the more likely women are not going to be able to escape those abusive relationships because they are already under the control of their abuser, and you are adding additional means by which the abuser can control their life.
Step one is filing for divorce, and at that file for divorce, they would also maybe make that argument. And if that argument is good enough as like we actually do have evidence, like it or not, that's a harsh way to say it, but it has to be good enough because at the end of the day, again, we're not in their rooms. We can't see them. So we have to be able to have some standard to be like, you know what? This person was abusive. And maybe we don't have to have them deal with each other. Maybe there's just a way to be like, how do we separate these kids? And that would be on the court. But I'm not talking about the situations of abuse because those situations.
Like this is 1950s, dude. This is why no-fault divorce was pushed so hard by feminists.
Agreed on this. Those situations.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
We keep them together. Who's arguing we keep them together? Just tell me that.
Nobody argued that, you dipshit. You didn't deal with my actual fucking argument.
So why even bring it up that anyone's arguing we keep these people together?
If you bashed your head into a stone wall, it would improve your fucking IQ right now. What the fuck
Very
are you
smart.
talking about?
Very smart. I can see the fucking galaxy behind you, or what is that? A supernova? Is that like your brain expanding?
It's AI art. There you go.
Every time a new dark web page pops up, your brain just grows like 3 times bigger. You're like, oh yes, the
he
ancap that
specifically
finally made
talked
it.
about how people won't even engage with these systems because of the barriers that you're putting in place. Right, that's what he was talking about. They won't even engage with these systems. Not even talking about keeping them together.
I'm assuming
assuming
he's stupid. He may not be stupid. He may just be an evil, lying piece
Then
of
people
shit.
don't want to
troll.
engage with any system.
But I'm assuming
any barrier
you're
we put in
stupid.
place. Freedom has
And
a
it is
barrier.
a compliment to call you retarded.
Freedom
right
in
now. I need
itself
you to
has a
understand
barrier.
that.
If you want to be more free to do more things, you're putting barriers on yourself because you're
Okay.
gonna like hurt yourself in other ways. It's the same, like the thing you talked about Prime earlier.
Freedom has a barrier.
You can have the
sure.
freedom to have more different types of relationships, but there's barriers there. It's gonna be harder. You're gonna have like worse outcomes most of the time if you can't manage those properly.
those.
And more than likely, you're not gonna be able to manage them properly because guess
Okay.
what? Those abnormal like relationships
Prime
are
Liberty.
different.
I don't know if I
You
like
got
this
it.
fusion going on today.
You got Prime Scott, yeah.
You're so like you got Prime and I to agree for an entire fucking stream. You understand how fucking stupid you have to be?
Maybe that was
and
his
how
plan all
dumb
along.
take
Can you
us
guys
for
just
that?
can you guys
I
touch
think
tips
when you're
real
wrong,
quick?
Liberty,
Can you
I
guys
think what
touch tips
happens
real
is when
quick?
you're so right, I think when you're so right, two people who hate each other will agree with each other because they're like, damn, that person fucked up my point. I think that's what happens.
If
Sure.
you ever dealt with any of my points, maybe you could make that argument. But
I think your
you couldn't
points
make
are
the arguments
very,
against
I think
them.
your points are very pointless. I think you try to make arguments that are existent on nothing. And I think at the end of the day, your ideal world is a world that lives in our world currently, but you get to like preach about your like ideal system.
You
I think
keep
you
bringing
will
up my
never-
ideal system.
You will never
I
live
keep
in your
bringing
ideal.
up concrete.
You will pretend
I
to be
keep bringing
real,
up
but you are
concrete
always a
principled
figment
positions,
of, like,
and you just
mentality.
keep spouting contradictory nonsense.
So
Technically
think-
contrary,
I think you're a
because they can
figment
both
of
be false.
humanity's.
But
In many ways, you're probably like who's the like god of fucking sloth and disgust and like disease in Warhammer 40k?
It's not
Nurgle.
Slanesh.
I think
It's
you're
Nurgle.
like a son of
Nurgle.
Nurgle, where it's like you've been given so much abundance that you're allowed to like be dumb.
Okay. So I
You
think
guys are both
Scott,
dumb. Got it.
Scott. Here, so now we've identified the issue. Okay. All right. You've been trying to convince me all these years of libertarianism, and you've been using like thoughtful arguments, right? That are well researched. Instead, right? If you had like,
I
done
just
the
need to
opposite,
expose
if
you to
just
other
vibe it
voters.
out.
act like a complete lunatic, right? For,
Prime, what
for
research
the
do you
government,
trust? I
I'd be
don't
like,
trust
oh
any of
my
y'all's
god, I can't
research.
trust the government because one of these people might be
You're like, fuck,
involved
these
in the
people
government.
vote. This might happen to me. I gotta get rid of this
Prime,
power.
There's
What am I
research you
doing?
don't trust.
Why am
These
I
people
going
vote
to
for
institution
research.
called the
democracy, right,
government?
Prime?
Right? This guy's a part of that government. He votes. He might be a bureaucrat too. Holy shit!
He is
Prime.
part of what he considers to be
Prime,
quote the
you
will of the
brought up
people.
research,
End
but
quote.
Prime, what research are you trusting? You said earlier you don't trust
God.
research based on like CPS organizations because you view them as biased organizations. I could just say at the end of the day, I don't trust any of your research. What I trust is the way that humans have tended to work throughout history, and the way they tend to work out is create groups, and those groups with more power or more numbers will tend to win in the overall, right? So
Yeah.
my goal
What
is
does
only
it have to do with
balance
what
those
we're
groups out.
saying,
Yeah,
dude?
right.
What are you talking about?
Just nod your
Yeah,
head.
because I'm not
just
trusting
what
the
I'm doing.
research,
Let's
right?
fucking
Prime is
nod your head.
talking about
What
how
the
much
fuck?
he cares about the research, but he also talked
Yeah.
about how the research didn't matter as long as he didn't disagree with it. So I'm not even pointing to that research. I'm just pointing to human
didn't.
behavior, right?
just
And that
making
behavior
up
tends to be
shit.
the numbers win.
Oh my god.
He said
Okay.
he doesn't listen to CPS numbers, like he doesn't trust them, which is like the
He said that he doesn't trust CPS because it's difficult to
define.
define abuse. That abuse is like is a loaded word.
I mean, if
and
you
that
want to,
he doesn't trust the institutions
who
and
want to take the
systems
kids away as
that
that
well.
a
are
world that's like
that's
incoherent. in
that's
itself.
literally their job, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what he's saying
I
is
know.
that there are problems with the system.
And so he
Well,
doesn't trust the numbers coming out of the
Let's say
research. And
we got it. We got it, guys. You got it.
You're not getting it,
You
but
got
it's
it.
okay. We'll move
So
on.
we tried. We tried. I didn't. I was like, there's only gonna be a few people here. We're gonna chill mostly.
The chill
Right.
stream starts now. Next
You know, you don't even lie. Wait, Prime, don't even lie to these people. I literally messaged you. I was like, just so you know, I'm pre-gaming this shit. I was like, I
Yeah.
am drinking while y'all are talking.
Yeah, like whatever. Lactoid drinks too during our conversations. Lactoid has never sent
Yeah,
us
but he's
into the
Canadian. That's
spiral.
like half of an American.
That's
Maybe
true.
a quarter.
That's true. I can't argue with that. But finally, agreement at the very end. Lactose is Canadian. So let's wrap it up, guys. Consider supporting. We didn't get much support today, though we definitely could use it. So consider helping out the channel. So KO Dave says in chat, quote unquote, we tried will be written on Prime Kai's gravestone. A good one. All right, fair enough. But we could use the support. So if you're out there and you like this, or you hated it, right, but it gave you passion and just something that to spend the time listening to, consider supporting the channel, sub to the channel, give bits or give subs, right? If you like this space, we do need you to support this space, sub to the channel, or super chats and stuff. So help us out, please. We do need that help. Okay, anyway, thank you all for being here. This was a lot, but I thank each and every one of you. I thank my friend Aiko, right? He brought the beard, right? There was the rest of your guys' beards, not up to snuff, not even Ali's, right? And you're Muslim.
I got no competition to Icon. I know
mustache.
Ical's got a few years on you.
To be fair, I also brought 2,000 years of tradition or whatever. I think maybe that could have been part of the conversation.
Me and Icon are pro Sharia, okay?
Yeah,
Me and Icon are for Sharia in America. We will have it installed, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Excuse me.
Okay. Shout out to my friend Ali. We had a disagreement, but that's always okay. And I'm glad to see my friend Ali passionate. I like engaging with him, right? That's why I invite him all the time. He's a good guy. Shout out to our friend Corey, who was only 75% interested. Appreciate him nonetheless.
That's Canadian 75. So that's like 50% American.
That's like 50% American. We've done the math, yeah.
It's like 43%. I've done it.
Thank you, Doobie, who is the silent gargoyle watching all this happen. But our friend Doobie is actually sick, and so we hope our friend Doobie gets back on his
get a booster, Doobie
flippers or whatever that is, and he's good to go in the future. And thank you to FK, and you brought. You brought
the Marcusianism.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, he brought that. He brought something.
I don't even know what the fuck that is. I say things out of my heart.
Okay,
that's all I can say.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Thank you, FK, for that. And the debate, and thank you, heartfelt thanks to Scott. Who was.
What's up?
God, you were great. The most rational here. I don't know. Like I'm
because he agreed with you.
I'm rational.
Because you guys agreed he's the most rational.
Anytime someone agrees with me, they're rational. Anytime they don't, they're evil.
I'll admit it.
Scott, you should take this as an insult.
I am biased in my appropriation here, but holy shit, Scott put forth arguments. You put forth a lot of arguments. We put forth arguments, and the other side really didn't. I'm just sorry.
Great arguments.
Yeah.
What if the state didn't do it? What if people just love the way they love?
Scott, I enjoyed fighting.
Definitely not a straw man.
I enjoyed fighting side by side with you. It's always nice when we can do that. We never done it for this long, I don't think. And like continuously, but this was a hell of an experience. So I'll send you guys off, I guess. I don't know. But consider supporting the channel, everyone. We do need your help. This is how we make it all happen. All right, let's see who we're going to send you off to.
While we're waiting, free Palestine. I got to get one in.
Free?
Just while we're here.
We always know there's always time for that.
Free Palestine from Hamas.
Free Palestine. Oh, something I should say is that Katie.
Islam is right about women? Is that what
Katie's doing a stream Friday, Saturday?
Katie is doing a stream this Friday and Saturday. Going to raise money for a specific family in Gaza who is wasting away. There is mass starvation in Gaza happening right now. on our feeds, on our social media algorithms, you're seeing it. People are dying, starving. So on Katie's channel, and I guess I'll be streaming it as well. I haven't actually decided exactly how I'm going to do this. But on Katie's channel, I forgot exactly. That's a good question. What exactly is the URL for her Twitch channel?
I believe it's
Do you know
underscore Katie, I think.
that underscore Katie? You think?
Or I'll, let me,
Uh,
I'll
Just look for
check.
it quickly.
It was like
Well,
that Katie Doe or some shit, right?
or something. Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, someone search for it. I'll be there. I'll be on that stream for quite a bit. It sounds like we're still planning it out. But yeah, we could use your help, people. Like that family, who is dying, literally dying, like life or death stuff here. Um, they could use assistance. Okay, yeah, that underscore Katie. I'm gonna put it in chat. Um, that underscore Katie. So we're gonna figure this out this Friday, this Saturday, and we'll be having other people, other streamers are gonna come on, and we'll do fun and games and stuff. I don't know. I've never done one of these things before, but we're gonna figure it out. Please consider supporting. Right, it's direct support. If nothing else, if you care about these, you care about humanity in general, yeah, like they could use your money, your support. So we'll be doing that this Friday and Saturday. So yeah, just wanted to get that out there. Thank you for reminding me of that, our friend Ali.
Yeah, I'll be there as well.
Palestine.
So we'll have some fun.
Yeah, we'll have fun. Okay. So I will send you all to this woman. She looks attractive enough, and that's all we need
Enough?
here.
What out of 10?
No. I mean, she just passed my test. Wherever it is. But she happens to be white, and we all know.
Guys, let her
Scott's
know
not
that
gonna
she
be a fan of
passed.
that.
Just like when you enter the chat, be like,
don't
you
do
passed.
that. Don't do that.
No, you have to add in you're white. You passed. You're white.
Don't do that.
The C word.
We're gonna send them off. And have a good time over there. Just waiting. Oh my God, it takes so long. Please. So awkward. Let me read now, please. Thank you. Please